Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be listening. I could break into different languages, but I won't because this is cocktails and conversations and I will screw it up. Thank you for joining another podcast of the Saints Martini with, of course, the amazing Halo Irish and myself, Warren the Saint. How are you today, Irish? How has your week been?
My week has been interesting. Yeah, it's been an interesting week. I live in America now. So
enough said. In other words, every week is an interesting week.
I will say, America for now. It's been an interesting week, and in that spirit, I just want to go ahead and confess something right now on the air, and I'm not proud of it. I went to the store yesterday, and I have broken down, Warren. I have now reached peak white suburban wine mom.
Right.
I bought a box of wine. Okay?
Yes.
And not just any box of wine, Warren. Not just any box of wine. A box of wine off the discount table. So I'm ashamed of it. And I'm admitting to it right now.
Well, if we're going
to top it off, it's just awful. So it serves me right.
You didn't buy Lambrusco or something like that, though, did you? I mean...
Well, I don't want to trash anybody's brand, but no, I bought Franzia in a box. And it's a dark red blend. So basically, it's like the spit bucket at a wine tasting.
Well, it's in... I have to admit, in my pantry, there is a box of wine. I always have a box of wine, and do you know why I have a box of wine?
Why is that? Because women come over.
Well,
I hope. I hope that's why.
Not in 2020. Anyway, I'll put it that way.
Oh, that's true.
But in cooking, because I think if you buy good quality box wine, it's fine to cook with.
Yeah, I mean.
So sure, I always have box wine because, however, it's $20 for 2 liters. We're not talking, it's the higher end of box, if there is such a thing as the higher end of box wine.
You would only buy the expensive box, I went to the discount table and went, this seems promising.
Well, okay. This is a perfect time where we actually talk about what cocktail are you having for this podcast. Are you having the box wine or
Warren, yes.
Okay, well, that's right.
That's why I had to just say, this is happening.
That's okay. But don't worry, because we're in similar company. Okay, because today I am drinking a De Bortoli Cabernet Merlot from 2019, because 6 months ago was such a great year, right?
So it's just basically grape juice still.
Well, it's alcoholic grape juice, right? So basically, this is pretty much what the Romans drank. You know what I mean?
It's what the French serve their children. No, they drink good wine with water.
Okay. However, De Bortoli is an Australian winery from the Yarra Valley, which is a winery about 10 kilometres east of Melbourne. So I'm just checking. Does it say Corona free? It comes with a mask. Okay, it's all right then. Because, of course, in Melbourne, we have gone Corona crazy. Everybody's getting Corona. Come on down to Melbourne.
Florida. We're Corona crazy. Everybody's getting Corona.
I know. Yes, I know. Florida. Is it getting any better in Florida, or is it still continuing to climb?
No, it is not getting any better, because we have an ignorant Trump-loving governor who is too full of himself or too ignorant to do the right thing. So he's basically saying, no statewide mask mandate, open the schools. He did take some funding, and at first I thought he took all the funding from our online program here for the state, but it turned out that he didn't actually do that. It's some loopholes and things. But anyway, the online programming has lost like $29 million in budget. because they want to force kids to go back to school physically, even though Rick Scott, our former governor and now senator, and DeSantis and Marco Rubio's kids, none of them will be going to public schools. So they'll be going, being homeschooled.
Yes.
So why are they trying to tell people to send their kids to school and force them to do that? And Trump even went on the air the other day and said, sure, kids are going to get it, It's like, but they have to go back to school. So basically, at first it was go ahead and sacrifice your grandparents. Now they want you to sacrifice your children too, and our teachers, who we already expect to be, Secret Service agents to protect children from gun violence all the time. And they keep cutting their salaries and treating them like they're the scum of the earth instead of the people who are actually helping mold the future of our entire freaking country. It's disgusting. So they want to put them at risk for that too. And I'm just tired of it.
Well, I suppose I'm very lucky. My country doesn't take teachers that way. Teachers are actually, my sister is a teacher. She will run around and sort of say, no, we're not paid enough. Of course we're not paid enough. But in the actual common ideology of where people's salaries are for educational levels and so forth, they're actually paid pretty well, to be truthful. Same as, nurses, casualty officers, fire officers, police officers. However, these people do such amazing jobs. Are they actually worth more than that? And I would always argue, yes, they are. But, the argument is $80,000 a year in a country where the mean average wage is 55, an okay salary? Well, I would say it probably is. However, are they worth more than that? When I get pulled into casualty with a leg chopped off due to a car accident, yeah, they're fucking worth more than that. When I put the safety of my child and the educational safety of my child into the hands of another person,
and emotional safety,
emotional, are they worth more than that? Yes, they are worth more than that.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
But I was just going to say, Australia is not at the level where American teachers are being paid, where they literally have to buy their own friggin' teaching aids and shit like that. So
and supplies
and all that. Where nurses are treated as second-class citizens, and no, Australia is not like that. Thank God.
I can imagine you'd feel that way.
Yes,
I can't remember
personal reasons,
and I had that problem. But we definitely don't pay teachers what they're worth here in this country, especially here in Florida. We have one of the lowest pay rates in the nation. But over in our country, unfortunately, systematically, they've been reducing the amount of funding that go to public schools, leaving more and more up to the states. And then that's basically dependent on property taxes. And recently, we had a request in a county that I lived in on the ballot to increase the sales tax or the property tax. I can't remember, was half a penny. Okay, half a penny would have funded this big program. This particular county, which has a huge population of kids that live in motels with their families. They're in insecure housing. They have insecure, food. They don't have it all the time. They go to school. That's where they know they're going to get meals. That's where they know they're going to be supposedly safe and taken care of. But the people in our county rejected it. Half a penny they couldn't deal with, and I find that to be disgusting. Now, over time, our government has defunded the schools, longer and longer. And I really feel like it's because, and I'm pointing at the Republicans again, and I'm not saying that the Democrats haven't been guilty of not taking care of things that needed to be taken care of in the right way. But I do feel like Republicans don't want to fund public schools because an educated class tends to vote Democrat. Tends to.
Right.
An uneducated population is more likely to be affected by fear. And the Republicans work from a place of, this is what you should be afraid of. And Democrats at least try to work from a place of this is what we, strive for. This is what we hope for. This is what we're working toward. I really feel like it's a huge thing. Okay, so they want people to be afraid because as they grow up, they're not educated and afraid, because people who are afraid, people who have fear, are easier to manipulate and control in the end. If they are afraid of what might happen all the time, they can't possibly be focusing on what could happen. You know what I'm saying? And some people's minds just work differently. So I feel like over time, they literally have been defunding education, one, because it makes people easier to frighten, and frightened people are easier to manipulate and control. And I also think it's a way to keep people in, and especially people of color, starting out in our schools, unfortunately, where they have handcuffed and called the police on a 6-year-old in first grade for having a tantrum in class. And they handcuffed a 6-year-old black child, a little girl, in our state. This goes on over and over again. They start the school to prison pipeline for people of color, especially black people in this country, from the time they are first out there in the world. And it's disgusting.
I was about to say, if an Australian teacher was found to have handcuffed a young child.
Oh, no, they called the police, and the police came and handcuffed the child and threatened to take her to prison.
Okay, if a police officer in Australia, except maybe Darwin, because they're a country. They're a country.
The name is ironic, is what you're saying? It's an ironic name?
No, Darwin is way up. It's actually a beautiful town now. But it has a long history of just being a shithole up north. Mind you, it was the shithole that actually got bombed for 100 days straight by the Japanese. But with that to one side, they're fucking strong people up there. There's no doubt about that. But
right.
But fuck me, they're a century behind everybody else. Okay, but as I said,
we talked about that whole innuendo thing. You got to stop that now.
But it's different now. You go to Darwin now. You get an amazing latte, and it's not just beer. I want coffee, beer, tea, beer. It's not like a Simpsons episode anymore. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that the port up there now is fucking huge. It's one of the huge ports for Asian export. And also, the military decided they were going to take it over. And so the Air Force and the Army have huge bases up there now. That's where all the American Marines go, is Darwin.
Okay.
And so it's changed dramatically to what it was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, it was... quite literally, you could have someone riding a horse down the main street. Where now you might I'll just park the Porsche.
Hey, well, there's a cowboy who rides down the street in Chicago all the time, and he's a black cowboy, and he's amazing. So I mean, it's Chicago.
It's cool.
Don't make fun of people who have towns with people riding horses down the street. That's
cool.
Badass.
No, okay, all right, sorry, I'll take that back then. But anyway, I think it was Darwin where they did have problems where the police were actually breath testing people riding animals because the whole idea was to sort of say,
were they riding wallabies?
No, not wallabies.
Sorry,
that was trouble. You'd have a bit of trouble riding a wallaby unless you're Stuart Little. But the but no, the whole idea is that if you're behind the wheel of a car, of course you can't drink in Australia; it's against the law, right? So the whole idea is that I'll ride my horse into town to the pub, and I'll tie it up out front at the front of the pub, and I'll ride it home, and I can't get pulled over. And the police sort of said, "Well, I'm sorry, it's still a vehicle. It's called a horse, but it's still a vehicle. We're going to breath test you, sir. Blow into the bag." And it's a little bit like, you're over the limit, you're going to jail. And
I have a story, so when you're done.
Okay, but anyway, I was so off the topic. What I was talking about was that if a police officer in Australia ever handcuffed a 6-year-old child, that police officer would, 1, say goodbye to their career, 2, would be sacked, 3 would possibly face criminal charges and end up in jail themselves. There is no way in hell an Australian police officer could get away with that. It breaches every fucking law, I think, and every obligation an Australian police officer signs up for. Also, I don't think there's any Australian police officer who would even contemplate the idea that it's acceptable. Australian police are not like American police. They're very different in the way that they think, operate. You know, so Australian police, a gun is the last line of defence, and it is used to save lives, not to... In other words, they use a gun to kill somebody if that person is trying to kill somebody else or trying to kill them, the police officer. A gun is not used as an arrest tool. That's why they have. That's why they have. That's why the police have batons to trip people up, hook canes to trip people up. They have mace. They have pepper sprays. They have all sorts of friggin' things under the sun that they can use. In fact, it has been said that in Australia, if you discharge your weapon into a human body, your career will end, most likely. Even if the shooting was totally justified, it is very unlikely you will walk the streets as a police officer again.
Well,
it's
I'm going to say...
It's a very different culture. It's a very different culture.
Oh, incredibly, because I'm going to say that back on March 13th, a woman in our country was shot and killed by cops when they came into her house in the middle of the night with a warrant for a person who was already in custody, and they weren't anything connected to her. This was a woman in her early 20s. She worked as like a paramedic or something like that. Honestly, she worked every day to try to help people. I believe she had even worked with the police somehow. I don't know all the details right now, so I don't want to screw that up. But what I do know is that the cops came in. They heard somebody breaking in, the boyfriend and her. The boyfriend got his gun and came out into the hallway because what the hell, as the cops, which we find out later were cops, opened up the door, and because he was there with a gun, they shot him. She was on the phone with her mother when they thought someone was breaking into their home, came out into the hallway. The police shot her multiple times, and she laid there on the floor for like 8 minutes, still alive. And the reason they know that is because she was on the phone with her mother, and she could hear what was still going on. Didn't help her at all, let her die. Those cops have still had nothing that has happened to them. Nothing. They have not been arrested. And it's freaking disgusting. This is the country we live in, where 6-year-old girls are handcuffed for having a tantrum in an elementary school by cops. And then a woman like that can do nothing wrong. Those people did nothing wrong. And then to find out that not only wasn't the right place, but the person they were looking for was already fucking in custody. And the cops say, oh, they had turned off their body cameras. Okay, so here we are in the streets, the people that are out there, and I have so much fucking respect for them going out and standing up for this, especially. But the shit that's going on in Portland started out as a Black Lives Matter thing to start to fight back against this. But because now the protests are inconvenient for Trump, and he wants to seem like what he keeps shouting, and I'm sure you've seen, once every day or so, in all caps, law and order, and people are hoping maybe he's just a fan of the show, but we know that's not the case, okay?
He's a fan of, Ice-T. Isn't it Ice-T and Law and Order? Fan of Ice-T's music, yeah.
Well, everybody's a fan of Ice-T, man. I'm sorry, he's cool as shit.
So, look, me and Ice-T, bros, man.
Well, this stuff's going on, and it's...
What I was about to say, what is it? East Side. Yeah. I know. Sorry.
Holy shit, dude.
I'm just joking. I'm joking around.
I know you are. That's why I'm laughing. Okay, so we're in Portland. The protests had been going on, and they had created this zone where they were like, there was like a cop-free zone. They were keeping people out, and the city was like, okay, look, you guys use the space, okay? Everything going on with the coronavirus, go ahead and use the space. Well, see, Trump didn't like that. So here's the thing, and I think we talked about this last week, that we have these people who are dressed like they belong in the streets of Afghanistan or Iraq or somewhere, when they're like military people out there fighting against what, we consider, for some reason, and I say we loosely, I don't consider these people this, but people who should just be shot on sight, basically, because they're probably terrorists because they live in this Middle Eastern place. They're on American streets right now. Now, these are not actual, real federal forces because they don't have proper uniforms. They are literally, and Jay Johnson, I don't know if you know who he was, but he was under Obama, the former head of the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security.
He
went on MSNBC.
Any ideas? Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
I figured you didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, no, I'm not. Yeah. I don't really expect you to. So he was on MSNBC the other day and basically has verified that these people that are out there in these mismatched camouflage outfits in the streets right now of places like Portland, and that's really kind of where they're testing this, they are contractors.
Contractors.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Do you know Eric? Do you know Eric Prince?
Contractors. Okay. Contractors.
Do you remember? Do you know Blackwater? Blackwater.
I've heard of it, but I don't really, not really.
Okay,
know.
So it is a military, like a mercenary contract business that's set up by these guys.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like it was. No. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay,
sorry.
So his name, and it doesn't exist anymore. They've changed the name to something else. Okay, but basically what they do is they contract out mercenaries.
Was he the ex-British paratrooper that formed that huge company in the 1980s?
I don't think they're British because he's the brother. His name is Eric Prince. He's the brother of Betsy DeVos, who is currently.
Oh, no, that's a different company then. That's a different company.
Secretary of Education,
Sorry,
and she's a woman who spent her entire life trying to tear down public education. Yet now she's in charge of it.
And so
which is super fun.
So the education minister. The education secretary in the United States.
Yes.
Her brother runs one of the largest private contractor. I hate that fucking word. That private contractor should be. That's mercenary.
They're fucking mercenaries.
Runs.
Yeah, they're mercenaries.
One of the world's largest mercenary companies. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it used to be called Blackwater, but because they had some bad press, he supposedly closed that all down, and Blackwater is now called something else, but he has a different company, but it's the same thing. It's called something else. So Blackwater turned into this other thing, which I can't remember the name of, but Eric Prince started another thing that I also can't remember the name of. And so those people, Jay Johnson confirmed that those people have been hired through this private contractors group and are now working as this is so stressful, unmarked, unidentifiable federal agents under the guise of the current Secretary in the Department of Homeland Security, who is the acting secretary because he was never confirmed by Congress, by the Senate. He couldn't get confirmed if he tried. You have a limit of like 210 days as an acting anything in our government. And it's been like 245 days. They are sending these people into Portland, what they say, to protect federal buildings from criminals and like anarchists.
Yeah. And that's we burn down the Reichstag. Let's burn down the Reichstag. Is that the next step?
That's basically it. It's like Trump's private Reichstag. Okay, so he's sending them and they're testing them in Portland. And so what started as just a Black Lives Matter protest has now blown up even bigger than it was, which was already amazing. And the people out there in the streets just continue to blow my mind. And I feel bad because I can't be out there right now. And I'm not in Portland, but there's nothing going on here. We have our protests and we can do things, but Orlando is a tiny town full of theme parks. So nobody, it's like, I don't want to go there, but okay. No. So here's the thing. We went from a Black Lives Matter protest in Portland to Trump basically testing out martial law. Now, a federal judge said, hey, you guys can't come in here and do this because the states say you can't be there. Now, this acting guy who has already overstayed his welcome, it's been like 245 days. So legally, technically, this guy has no legal authority to do these things. But he said, we're going to send these people in here to do this, whether the states and the cities like it or not, because we're here to do a job and that's what we're going to do. This is where we are now. Okay, so they're using the protests, unfortunately, for people who are rightly protesting the treatment of Black people and people of color in our country for a freaking millennium, since the beginning of time here. Finally, this has been enough of a catalyst to get people really into the streets, which is unfortunate, but also it's a positive thing in my mind, even though it's unfortunate that it's had to happen. But Trump is using it as a way to declare, basically test out martial law. And this is happening at the same time they're slowing down our mail service and all kinds of things to make sure that there's going to be a real problem during our elections. And if he loses, which I feel like hopefully he's going to lose big, there's going to be a real big explosion of some shit going on here. And again, people told me when he was elected, and I was freaking out before the election, that I was being fatalistic and I was being, yeah, tell me what I was wrong about so far.
I've heard some. I had a chat with somebody. Yeah, there was nothing private about the conversation, so I can say it. Okay. This was last week, and we were talking about the United States, and we were talking about the whole abyss. I had, in fact, he had said that there were mercenaries now on the streets of the United States, which I sort of went, oh, yeah, I took it with a grain of salt. I didn't sort of know, yeah, okay, but yeah, okay. And he said, he gave his concept of where he thought November, and then when is the handover? February, is that right? After
January 21st.
January 21st. Okay. And he said what he thought would actually happen. And this was his call. And he said that he believed that there would be a Democratic victory in the White House or for the presidency. But we would go back to another fighting this state, fighting that state, because there would be a huge number of states, which are what you would currently call red states, which turn blue, and so they would go to the courts. In other words, much like, was it Al Gore with, George Bush and Al Gore, was that right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And it would be, you would get a repeat of that. Okay, so first of all, that will happen. Then, after all of that, the Democrat will still be viewed legally as, despite Trump's tweets and press conferences, it will still be legit. Trump will still deny it. He will try to do something physically to, renounce it. And there will be certain people who will speak to him and quite literally let him know, sir, you have the choice. Your and your family's death, or you hand over power. Because the fact is, the CIA, the FBI, will not stand for that shit. They will not stand for it. And also the generals in command of the divisions throughout the American military will not stand for it. Doesn't matter if they like Trump's or the Republican policies. They will not stand for a, I don't know, fucking Southeast
I'm gonna
Asian
just say right
or
now,
Eastern European attempted coup. They won't stand for it. And they will quite literally have, it's a little bit, I'll just finish it off with this term, okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, if that's all right. And that is that back in 2000, I think it was 2000, there was a little incident that happened far, far away from the United States in a country called East Timor. And that was that East Timor was had been invaded in the 1970s by Indonesia after it got its independence from Portugal. And anyway, Australia did absolutely fuck all about it because, even though it's very close to Australia, because we'd just come out of the war in South Vietnam, and there was no way known that the Prime Minister at the time, Gough Whitlam, was going to send Australia into a war with Indonesia after just pulling the troops out of South Vietnam. It was just not going to happen. And so Indonesia took over the country. Now, it had been a sore point for ever since the 1970s, for 30 years, about it. Finally, a Prime Minister actually saw the right time, stood up, worked with the United Nations, and fucking kicked the Indonesians out, re-seized East Timor. Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. I'm really giving you the short version. And Australia sent, I think it was at least 50% of our armed forces into fucking East Timor. With the UN, we had Italian troops, Brazilian troops, British troops, New Zealand troops, Singaporean, Thai. We formed an entire coalition to go in. You guys kind of didn't want to help us, which is interesting considering we help you all the time. But anyway.
That's a touchy subject here, we know, for you. So, yeah, I get you.
It's like we support you in every fucking war and we need you once and you are... What? I didn't hear anything. Sorry. Although
America is the only place that matters, Warren. Don't you know that?
But it must be actually said that George W. Bush did do one thing for it, and that was that apparently the CIA did have some quiet talks, with with their diplomats in regards to the Indonesian government. Your government did supply us with a shitload of ammunition, which we needed. Suddenly, millions upon millions of rounds of ammunition, were available. So that was something. But to get to the point, when it all happened, the general who was put in command of it, an Australian general, flew in to East Timor to meet his opposite number, the Indonesian general, who was in command of East Timor. They met in a tent, which was all set up. They had red cordial and sandwiches. How fucking Australian is that? Cordial and sandwiches. Right? So they had cordial and sandwiches, and they had a discussion. And the Australian general made the comment, and he said, "We're coming. We're coming by helicopter, by parachute, by landing craft. We have a force of around 20,000 fucking men and women arriving in 3 days. You have a choice. You can fight us. If you do, we will still be victorious and you will go home full of holes. What do you want? Because we're coming whether you want it or not." And amazingly, after that meeting, the Indonesian army withdrew from East Timor, with the exception of a few mercenary units and special forces units, which the Australian and New Zealand special forces fucking took on, seriously actually took on. It's all still classified. It's amazing. Apparently, there were all these battles which never happened, but if you go to the War Memorial, you will see all these decorations to the SASR and the SASNZ for actions, the war medals. But there was no fucking battle. What the fuck?
Well, I'm just going to say, Warren. Listen.
No, just finish. My point was that I'm so off the... What was my point? What was I even talking about?
I don't know what your point was. You won't let me talk anymore.
Sorry. Oh, shut up. Sorry. Okay. I've been talking way too much and got so off the point, I don't even remember what my fucking topic was.
Here, the topic was at that point when you started talking about East Timor is how Trump was going to be told by our CIA that he's to choose his family's death or leaving the White House. Let me just say to you, one, that will never happen because the CIA does not deal with domestic issues in our country. They are only for foreign issues. Okay,
right?
The FBI deals with domestic issues here. Secondly, they will never threaten him with death. They will literally send in military people of some sort, a force, as it were, MPs perhaps, as he is the commander-in-chief in a sense, because he's really not, even though he technically is. They will physically remove his ass from the White House if he refuses to leave.
Sorry, can I
They
just
will
say
physically remove him.
Yeah, so what I meant was death. I didn't mean a CIA man would walk up with a silenced rifle in the middle of the night. That's not what I meant. What I meant was if you want to stand with the bikers, because Trump has the bikers, if you want to stand with them...
They've already said they're not doing the things he's claiming.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
But if you want to stand with them against the 82nd Airborne Division, try it, mate. You will end up dead.
See, that's the thing.
That's what I mean by the death.
I think they will come in.
I don't mean they were threatening to murder him. Sorry, I just want to make it clear. I was not.
No. It wouldn't even be a threat in that sense.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you right now, somebody in the military of some sort or someone of high rank, because Trump actually sort of does respect the generals, because I think he, like a 5-year-old child, looks at them in a different kind of way, like not as an adult does, but he's, it's like a kid looking at a general. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so I believe they will come in and they will straight up tell him, sir, you need to, be out of this place by this time or you will be physically removed. Now, Trump does not honestly want to be embarrassed. Okay. But I don't know if his level of psychosis will allow him to actually physically leave. But you're right in thinking that they will contest everything. He's already started to set up his excuse for losing because he's been told he's down in the polls everywhere. His ego and his psychosis will not really allow him to dwell on that. He's just going to say everybody's lying. But deep down inside, the thing is that he hates himself. He knows that he's a loser. That's why he acts the way he does publicly, to try to push that down. He has felt like he was inadequate his entire life. And guess what? He has been inadequate his entire life. Now, that may not have necessarily been true as a child if he had been in a family that didn't, wasn't filled with cold, awful people, but they were. And he already had the propensity probably for the same issues his father had. And I think we're just, unfortunately, as a country, on the receiving end of the inevitable with him. He will leave the White House, but he may actually have to be physically removed. I don't know how that's going to turn out. I do not believe that he will resign. I've been speaking with somebody who's been telling me since January, he's going to resign in the next 2 weeks. You know what? It's not happening. And I've told them repeatedly, that's never going to happen. If
he was going to do that, he would have done it 2-3 months ago. He wouldn't have. It's too late now.
My point is, though, he really can't. What he really fears is what's coming after he leaves office. Right now, he has been shielded by that stupid fucking memo that says that you can't indict a sitting president for crimes because it will interfere with the job of him being president and doing fucking crimes. I don't understand that. If somebody's committing crimes, they should be held accountable. It shouldn't matter whether or not it's going to interfere with a job of a person who's a fucking criminal. The man is literally destroying our entire democracy. He is absolutely doing everything that is the opposite of what our Constitution is supposed to be about. And he has been surrounded by people who have systematically and very slowly started to dismantle all these checks and balances that we've had in our country, that I was told my whole life would protect us from this kind of shit. That's kind of why I think so many people, especially people like me, because I'm going to be honest with you, even though I didn't grow up with a ton of stuff, I still lived in a place of privilege in regards to my position as who I am in this country. And I understand people are evil. There's always going to be some shit out there that I can never wrap my head around. I will always be surprised, maybe not surprised. I will always be shocked by the level of depravity and evil that is taking place in our world right now, in our country. A place where I literally believed when I was a kid the stories of Christopher Columbus discovered America and, all of these things that we were told. I didn't understand the whitewashing that our history had because I literally lived in a place where my parents weren't racist in any way. But even though we didn't have a lot, I still grew up in a place of privilege in a sense. in a way that a lot of people in our country don't get to grow up in. And it took me a long time to understand what's really going on here. And so this person that I talked to, they keep saying, oh, he's going to resign. He's going to resign. And I keep saying, you know what? That's never going to happen. And as much as I hate to admit it, we are in a weird ass fucking time. And it's terrifying what's happening in my country right now. To me, especially for somebody like me who didn't ever really understand until I grew up what the reality of our country was. And as I started to actually, and I know they use the term woke, and I hate that fucking term, I've been told by people of color that are friends of mine, I've been told by people of color that are friends of mine from high school that I still keep in contact with, we talk, they've said they've used that term for me. I hate it. I don't think that's right. I think what's happening is it's not that I'm woke, it's that I'm waking up. And I think I'm trying to wake up people around me in my sphere because I recognize that, and we discussed this, it's like I don't mean to be classist. But now, I didn't grow up with a lot. We lived in terrible places. My parents didn't have hardly anything. And as I grew, I got more and more and more. And now sometimes I find myself having to face my own classist attitudes, and it makes me sick. And I have to really step back and go, you know what? You're being a stupid bitch right now. Stop that. You know, because it's the shit going on in my own head, and I try never, never, never to act on it. You know, I just try to do better.
But I think I think that's very good. I mean, when I grew up with fucking everything. I grew up in a very wealthy family who was, you know, had everything. The only reason we may not have had things as kids and we had to save up or whatever was more because parents' concept of discipline, that no, you just can't have it handed to you on a silver platter. You have to save up for it. But things that they knew that we could not save up for, new motorbike, no worries. Here you go, 15 years old, new motorbike. Oh, it's a bit old. All right, what about another new motorbike? It's only been 12 months. Click the fingers, here you go. Right? But I'd sort of, but I would sort of say, oh, but I'd really like this, you know, some remote control aeroplane. Oh, you got to save up for that. Right? So if it was affordable for a teenager to get, then you had to do it by yourself. If it was unachievable, such as a motorbike, right, for a 14, how's a 14-year-old going to save up for a motorbike, right? So
why does a 14-year-old need a motorbike? But okay.
Because I used to race them when I was a teenager. That's why. Yeah, I know. But they also seem, but that was encouraged because that was sport. You were out and about with other people. I used to race enduro bikes. If anyone knows what enduro racing is, great. If you don't worry about it. It's just motorcycle racing through the countryside. So rather than on a track. Okay. So it's nice. It's like rally. You've heard rally racing, right? Rather than in motorsport. Okay. Well, it's enduro is rally for motorcycles.
Okay.
Think about it. It's like that, right? Okay, yeah. So I used to do that when I was a teenager, all right? So, and I had some friends. We all did it. All used to do it. And where am I going with this? I get so fucking distracted. Oh, yes. So I grew up with everything I could possibly want. I lived in a big house in the, you know, the suburbs with, you know, a swimming pool. You know, was sent off to tennis lessons, learn how to play tennis and, you know, and all this sort of stuff, right? So... And I have to admit, I very much grew up with this idea of let them eat cake. Like, I did not understand the problems of anyone that, because in my mind, this was the thing, was that it wasn't that... What the problem was, I didn't hate anybody. It's just that I didn't understand what they were saying because to me it didn't make sense. That. How can someone not have enough to eat?
Because you'd never experienced it.
How can somebody
never experienced that?
And so they say, oh, the school doesn't have this. What do you mean? Of course the school does. I go to school every day, and there's, you know, we get sent overseas on school trips. Yeah. I've got a school, so we're hearing about schools where their textbooks are 3 years out of date. Well, it's a bit like, well, how can you say that? We've just been sent to Indonesia on a holiday. right? Like how,
I think we have
you know?
textbooks in Texas that still refer to slavery as like the troubled times.
Okay,
You know,
okay, even poverty in Australia is not that bad. Okay, so,
I mean,
but
shit, man.
okay, but my point was I didn't understand, and I think when I finally started to learn that extreme right wing ideology was maybe not the way, was actually spending time with my grandfather. And my grandfather was a very strange man, okay? He was a mad lover of the AFL, Australian football,
Okay.
anyway. And we used to, but of course, here we go.
Wait, is that soccer or rugby? What is that?
It's in between. Okay, just for anyone who doesn't know, look up AFL Aussie rules or Australian football. There are YouTube videos galore about one of the most violent fucking sports there is on the planet. Makes rugby look fucking like nothing. Okay, so anyway, he loved this sport. Absolutely loved this sport. In fact, his best friend in the world, they met because of their love of this sport. And he's recently passed on now. And not my grandfather died years ago, but his friend, who treated my mother as his goddaughter, which is kind of really, really... Anyway, we're so fucking getting off the track. They met in the recruiting office in Melbourne because when the Second World War broke... Oh, I'm boring people with stories. Don't worry.
What are you? What? No, you're not. Come on, tell me the story.
Okay, well, my family are not Australian. You have to remember they were immigrants. You know, basically just before the Second World War. My father didn't arrive until 1958. Right. Okay. So we're pretty new to Australia. We're the next generation. Okay.
So you're first generation technically Australian.
I am first generation Australian.
Okay.
But anyway, my grandfather, he joined what was called the CMF, Citizens Military Forces, National Guard, you would call it, okay, in like 1937 or something like that. And he rose to the rank of sergeant, right, just in it, okay. Now, the Second World War broke out, but he had a family, you know, he had kids and everything. He wasn't going to volunteer to go and fight the Germans and the Italians because, you know, he had a family. He had all these kids and everything.
Right.
You know, he wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was a knock at the door. Oh, no, sorry, it wasn't a knock at the door. It was at his, you know, like parade nights, you know, like every Tuesday they have a parade night. They get together and, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And there were these regular soldiers from the Australian Army. And they took him to one side because he was a sergeant. And they said, if you transfer to the regular army, in other words, get sent overseas to fight the Germans, we'll give you a commission. Now, for my grandfather, I don't know if a lot of people get the concept of this today, but back then, you know, fucking 50, 70 years ago, right, this was going from being a middle-class person to being an upper-class person with a click of the fingers. Your class
New money.
When you became an officer, you became a gentleman. Right? This was a big fucking deal, right? To be an officer, all right? The working class weren't officers. They were the soldiers. They weren't the officers. And he thought about it and he took it because this was going to put their family up. And it did. He would come out of the war as an acting major. He would start up a chain of butcher stores. He owned 3 or 4 butcher franchises throughout Melbourne. Cool. Like he died a fucking millionaire, you know. And all of this came from this opportunity he was given, which was you've got to risk your life, but the upside is we're going to put you one social class up. And he thought it was worth the risk. And he survived the war, although he suffered from malaria for the rest of his life. But, you know, most soldiers who fought in the Pacific did. malaria was a curse that would haunt them forever. Unfortunately, it's not like today. Back then they went in with no drugs, no protection, and
now we have hydrochloroquine, which is a malaria drug.
Not a fucking COVID-19 drug. Yes, I know. But anyway, he was then sent off because he had to go through officer training school, because he may have been a sergeant, but he wasn't an officer. He still had to go to school to learn how to be. So they sent him off to redo the physical and everything, to go off to officer training school. And he was standing in line with this other guy, all right? And who, I'm not going to say his name, but anyway, he was standing in line and they started talking. And they were huge football fans. They loved their football. My grandfather had fallen in love with Australian rules football. And they started talking. But the difference was, my grandfather supported Essendon and this other guy supported Collingwood. They became such good friends, they tossed a coin to decide which team they would follow together.
Oh, that's cute as can be, honestly.
And Essendon won.
What a nice story.
Right? Essendon won, and the two of them, he then changed his team. And you have to remember, Collingwood fucking support is... I don't know, what is... If this is like the Manchester United of Australian football.
Oh, okay.
Was Collingwood, okay?
Right.
So to move away from that was a big fucking deal for a football fanatic. And mind you, they were going to war. There was probably bigger things to worry about. But... although knowing them, there probably wasn't. Anyway, so they both then supported the Essendon Football Club. They became members of the club, and they stayed members of the club until the day they died. Both of them never missed a game. They went to every single solitary game, and they would sit, because they were members, they would sit in the corporate box. The corporate boxes and everything. So my memory of a child growing up going to watch sporting matches was not in the crowd. It was in the fucking sporting boxes drinking champagne. Right?
Yeah,
so I'm trying...
okay,
so... All right, so anyway. But something happened. I'm finally getting to the point, okay? And then I promise I'll shut up for half an hour and you can just have the show. You know, control the show.
Oh, don't make me feel pressure. Oh,
no. And that was when we were sitting there, and there was... The referee was an Aboriginal of this particular match, okay? And I could hear all of these men in their three-piece suits sitting there with their drinks, their glasses of scotch in their hands, watching the game, screaming out from the corporate box, because they didn't have glass on them back in those days, right? And screaming out from the box, and it was a little bit like, I can't say the words. It was like B, or N. Go back to
so
Arnhem
it's like the
Land,
stuff I yelled at the umpires during the baseball games. I get you. Yeah.
No, the most
bad
racist stuff I have ever heard in my life. Oh. Okay? And I looked at my grandfather, never said anything. Looked at his friend, his best mate from the war, never said anything. All right? And I still remember we were driving home, and I said to my grandfather, I'm not used to, like, what was, it's a bit funny. And he goes, we just pretend that doesn't happen. We just pretend that doesn't happen. Right? And I realised my grandfather was not a racist. My grandfather, he travelled to the Middle East time and time again. He said he loved the Arabs. He would talk about the Arabs. He said they're so polite, they're so nice, they're so caring. He said, I love the Arabs. No, his favourite country in the world?
I love Muslim people.
What? Japan. He's a war veteran of the Pacific. His favourite country to be in, other than Australia, was Japan. Do you know how many times he and his wife, my grandmother, travelled to Japan after the war?
No, how many?
Well, of course you're not going to know. That's a stupid fucking
Of course
question.
I don't know. If I knew, I would tell you. No, it was rhetorical. Just answer.
12 times, a full dozen.
Wow.
That's how many.
My wanderlust is just drooling right now.
They fell in love with Japan. In fact, I guess they fell in love with Japan. And I still remember, so I was saying, but, you were, and he goes, that was a war, man. That was a war, mate. I don't hate them. They don't hate us. That was a war.
Right.
Don't just fucking, their country's beautiful. It's like, it's a little bit like my grandmother of my father's side went on holiday in Frankfurt in 1956. Well, she had bloody buzz bombs falling on her before that. So, it's like...
Right.
Anyway, shut up.
I'm going to take the stage now because I want to tell you, I'm going to remember to go back to the other story I wanted to tell you later when we were talking about the guy on the horseback that was drunk and was pulled over by the cops. Because I have a story and it's very personal and I'm going to tell you guys and it's hilarious also. But I want to tell you about why. Okay, so you had privilege when you were young and didn't understand your privilege then.
Yeah.
Like actual class privilege. Here, I didn't have that. The class privilege when I was young, but we discussed the fact that I understand I had skin color privilege. Like I didn't get that until way later. But here's the thing. My family still always felt super uppity. Okay. And here's why. It was the weirdest shit. Okay. My dad's side of the family, my father's father, they came from Wales. Now, my grandfather was born in the U.S. in 1918 in Detroit, Michigan. Now, he was born as a first-generation American from a father who was Welsh, okay? But his mother was a family that had been established in Detroit for a really long time. And when I traced them back, that's where one of my ancestors that actually fought at Valley Forge with George Washington. He died there.
Fuck.
Yeah, one ancestor that I have had this experience. He died at Valley Forge, and I don't know whether or not he starved to death or froze to death, but I know it's probably one of the two based on the struggles they went through there.
Can I just say, interrupt you very quickly, it would have to only be one of the two. Valley Forge, to anyone who doesn't understand what, was not a battle, it was a camp where the American Continental Army rebuilt itself under the training of George Washington. It was not a battle. Yes. It was a staging camp to rebuild the army. Please continue.
And it was winter, and it was horrific. And so I know that my ancestor died either of starvation or he froze to death. I don't know which one it was, but he was a captain in the Revolutionary Army under General George Washington, okay? And his name was Josiah Moore was his name. He's somebody you can actually find on Google because he was somebody that was enough people are related to that have done their genealogy. Okay. So because his mother's side of the family, they were the Pecks. Marion Peck was my great grandmother's name. She was a violinist in the symphony in Detroit, the Detroit Symphony. And that was a huge deal at the time, the early 1900s, like 1910. 1915, somewhere like that. Her family was a long-time American family. They'd been here for a really long time. Now, she met my great-grandfather, who could not possibly have a more Welsh name. His name was Gwilym Llewellyn Glandair Thomas. Okay? Yes, thank you. Because... how can you have a name that's more Welsh than that? You basically can't unless you actually read the names of all of his brothers and his one sister. Okay? They are very, very Welsh people. Okay? But where they came from in Wales, this was the weird thing. Where they came from in Wales, they had a long history of being highly respected and famous ministers and members of parliament, and different Dylan Thomas I'm related to, the poet.
Right.
Yeah. So the family itself, the Thomases in my family, and the family that married, my great-great-grandfather was a Thomas, of course.
Yeah.
His wife was an Evans, and she was related to the very, very famous ministers. I have obituaries from them that were written in London for them when they died. And some of them were Welsh-speaking ministers. So I have a huge history of generations of nonconformist ministers in Wales. And also, on the Thomas side, they owned a silver mine and a colliery, a coal colliery. Now, the coal colliery was very, very profitable. But at one point, okay, so while it was profitable, and so was the silver mine, it was profitable. It wasn't a big colliery, and it was at Penland, but it's not the Penland colliery that when you look up, you find. It's something before that, I think, because I've been doing the genealogy and research for a long time. They had a lot of money because of that. It was for the first time, because of both where my grandmother came from and my great-great-grandfather, they had a lot of money. And so there's stories of them living in a manor home in Roath. And I actually, not that long ago, but it's not available to see anymore, which is devastating. I actually didn't think to take screenshots and save the pictures. I linked to the URL. But the townhome that my great-great-grandfather and his family, where my great-grandfather lived for years before he came to the U.S., was for sale in Roath, Wales. And it was a freaking fabulous townhouse. But they also apparently, before that or slightly after that, I'm not sure, had a manor house, a large manor house with fountains on the grounds, I've been told, and in the stairwell, full-size oil paintings of their ancestors.
Yes.
Okay.
So there was that's the way it was done. That was the way it was done. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So my great-great-grandfather grew up and my great-grandfather, who was the child of these people, they grew up in a very strict home that was, you were expected to dress for dinner. If you put down both your fork and your knife at the same time on the plate, the servants that were standing behind you, one servant for each person at the table, would remove your plate. Okay? This was a ridiculously wealthy family. My great-great-grandfather, the colliery flooded. And they started selling off shares of the silver mine to try to pay for the pumping out of the coal colliery, of the mines there. It didn't work. In the end, everything was closed. They lost everything. And my great-great-grandfather had apparently an issue with mental illness. The next time I found them after this had happened, the next time I found them in the census, they list him as they were now living in Devonshire, England. And he was listed as his occupation, he was building a gravity engine. You know what that is? You know.
Yeah, I know what a gravity machine. I know what a gravity engine is.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and I imagine this man with his mental illness in his basement trying to do this, like freaking out because they don't really have anything anymore. Okay. But so in that regard, my great-grandfather, moved to the U.S. with 3 of his brothers. Now, one of the brothers had a child, and I don't know if you guys have this show over there called Forensic Files. It's an American show. They talk about murders.
We probably do. I don't watch much television, so I don't really know.
Well,
but
and
we probably
I don't know if you know him or not, but his son, my grandfather's first cousin, was Peter Thomas, who was a very famous voiceover actor here in the U.S. He narrated that show for a decade or more. He did, and it was funny because when I was in middle school, we would watch film strips, and they would be narrated with this tape that they would play along the film strip. And the narration at the end, it would say, narrated by Peter Thomas. And I would go, oh, because Thomas was my maiden name. I was like, I wonder if I'm related to him. Well, it turns out I was.
Wow.
Later. Yeah. So anyway, that doesn't matter. I'm digressing again. But anyway, he and his 3 brothers came to the U.S. right about 1917. They came in through Canada and Seattle, and then they came across and they started out kind of their life in Detroit. And he met my great-grandmother in Detroit, the one I told you that was from this family that had been here forever. And all of a sudden, this man who had grown up in a manor house with life-size oil paintings and servants came to this country And my great-great-grandmother did not want her daughter Marion to marry Gwillem, my great-grandfather. You know why? Because he was a dirty immigrant.
Wow, so that's a bit like my family. Wow, okay, that's
It's
interesting.
it's disgusting, right? So
Yeah.
she married him anyway. She married him anyway. And I heard this story from my grandfather, who was also okay, so my great-grandfather became an Episcopal priest. He followed kind of his grandfather's position when he got here, and he and another one of his brothers did. Peter Thomas's father also became a minister. They lived here in Central Florida, just south of where I live, actually, in an area called Polk County, which is amazing to me, that I ended up in a place that was so close to where they had lived for so long. He did that, and in the end, even though she married him, my grandfather also became an Episcopal priest, and I always felt like it was because he was the oldest and felt like he was following in the family business. But there's more to that story later, because that's a whole comment.
There used to be an old argument that if the two brothers in the family, one would go into the priesthood and the other would go into the army. There's a long-standing British tradition of that.
Okay. Well,
so
here's the thing. My grandfather did become a priest, but his younger brother, there were two brothers, his younger brother is a flautist who has played all over the world, and he's like the president of the International Flute Society. His name is Mark Thomas. He has albums out. He's amazing. He was quite a bit younger, like maybe 15 years younger than my grandfather. They also had a sister. Okay, so they were married. My great-grandparents were married for a very long time. And here's the thing. He obviously also had the same mental illness that his father had, because later he was, this is so funny. He was an Episcopal priest here in Florida, but he went up to Georgia, somewhere near Atlanta, to do some work there in one of the parishes. And while he's there, and he's married at this point with 3 children, okay? The bishop here in Florida gets a call from a bishop up in this area that he is in and says, I have Father Thomas up here, and, he's interested in marrying my niece. And so I just wanted to call and see if you had some, just had some information about him and see if he's a good guy. I just wanted to see what you thought of him. Well, he goes, well, that's great, but Father Thomas is married with 3 children. Okay, so literally the guy was trying to become a bigamist.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Didn't realize, I think because of mental illness, and there's more to that, that he would be checked up on, like someone was going to call and find out what the fuck. So in the end, they got divorced. And
hang on. Yeah, you're okay. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, she divorced. Yeah, my great grandmother divorced him. Of course, he never got remarried. But later, when my aunt and uncle, my father's oldest siblings, went to visit him, he was living in a place still here in Central Florida. And when they got there, and this is how I know that this mental illness is there, and I'm just going to tell everybody, it's probably in my head too. So yeah, I'll go ahead and say stuff. He was living in an apartment where he would leave every day and go for a walk for like 8 hours every day. He'd walk like miles and miles and miles in the Florida heat. And then he would come back to his apartment. Well, when they got there, he had in his bedroom 7 mattresses stacked on top of each other where he would sleep. 7 mattresses. And my aunt and uncle said to him, what's going on with these mattresses? So he then imparted the story of the Princess and the Pea to them.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So we had some mental illness, but what I think is interesting about the story, besides the fact that he also was a priest who tried to become a bigamist and some weird shit, but that I feel like his instability was enhanced by coming from somewhere that, like he did, being raised with privilege in a way that most people probably wouldn't have even understood in that time period. And coming to this country and being treated like he was a low-class, dirty immigrant. and not good enough to marry my great-grandmother, which turned out in the end to be true, that he wasn't good enough, but it's not because he was an immigrant. You know what I'm saying? So,
Well,
but it was an interesting difference in class, like what happened to him and how he was perceived as soon as he got here. You know?
I think I've said on the show before my family split between Catholic and Protestant in the early 20th century. After escaping the French Revolution, coming from France to Britain as devout Catholics, wealthy Catholics. And then the family split because one of them decided to marry a Protestant. Oh, you don't do that. So I think I've actually spoken about this on the show before. It's just that I would have been so drunk. But anyway, so I'm not gonna go down.
Are you saying you're not drunk now? Because I'm a little buzzed.
Well, I'm a little buzzed, but in the words of Lister from Red Dwarf, comfortably drunk. Right, so in other words, it's like
drunk
it's
on
like,
discount boxed wine, Warren.
You're at that point. You're at that point where you can still talk, but you've got the buzz on. It's okay. So anyway, so yes, but I think I have spoken about that before. So I'm not going to go down the whole freaking thing about my family escaping the French Revolution and stuff, because that's all
where
been
you got that
before.
let the meat cake attitude, man.
Well, it probably was. even though you do realise that was all bullshit. Mary Antoinette never said that. She never said.
No, it wasn't cake. It was another name of a bread. It still was a sweet bread, but it's literally the only bread she ever ate, so she didn't know any better. So I'm not saying they didn't deserve the guillotine, but
No. She never said it. It's a made up post-revolutionary fact. It's one of those. It's one of those things where it's one of those things where how it's like Catherine the Great of Russia. Died having sex with a horse. Okay,
Who said that?
Her son.
Gross.
And it wrote itself into Russian history for years, for a long time. Now, of course, it was not true. She died of a stroke. Okay, and she was, and of course, she had there was nothing in her life that had anything remotely ludicrous like that. Yes, she would take on younger and younger lovers as she got older, but I mean.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't you?
But she was the Tsaress of Russia. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe the older guys just couldn't keep up with her, man. I'm just going to say, older women are looking for some stuff.
I think I know the reason why. I think she'd get bored with them because they would get. I don't know. I shouldn't probably talk about all of this. It's the idea of what happened to the Tsaress Katharina. Mind you, today she is viewed as one of the great Tsaresses. Russians love her. They, it's like, but even some of the ones, someone like Peter the Great. Peter the Great was an absolute asshole, but he's beloved in Russia. Absolutely. Mind you, he did a lot for the Russian economy, modernising Russia, no doubt about that. I mean, he founded St. Petersburg, which would, of course, start...
which is the city that I was named for, or not named, I'm sorry, I was not named for that. I was born in a city named for the Russian city in Florida, St. Petersburg.
So, okay, and now, however, that would also start 200 years of wars with Scandinavia. Mind you, the wars with Scandinavia would eventually turn Scandinavia neutral. So, hey, I mean... Here's
you said Scandinavia. I have to say, no, I'm going to totally change the subject because I need to talk to you about Eurovision.
Oh,
I need to talk to you about Eurovision.
We can, but can we take a quick break and can we come back?
Sure.
And start, is that all right? All right, so we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back with Irish's question. What will the question be? We will soon find out.
I just said it's about Eurovision.
Oh, sorry. It's about Eurovision. All right, fuck it. All right, there we go. All right, no worries.
Right back.
All right, we will be right back. And we are back. We still stayed stumm. Sorry. Anyway, your 3 seconds is our fucking half an hour. It's like timey-wimey.
I think it's been 45 minutes now. We've been talking about some stuff that Warren. No more singing.
Sorry, okay.
No.
I was humming. Anyway, that's all right.
Stop it right now. No.
Eurovision.
That was
you
a
wanted to
do-do.
talk.
That was not a hum.
Was it a doo-doo? Okay, a doo. I did a doo-doo. Sorry. I did a doo-doo. Sorry.
I think you've had enough scotch.
Sorry.
I've had enough terrible boxed wine.
I'm being good. No. I'm
my
being
wine
good.
away.
I'm being good. I am being very good. Eurovision. You wanted to talk about Eurovision, which I find interesting. I find fascinating, and I love it. But
here's why. Because one, I've been fascinated with it since you told me about it. Because apparently it's been going on for like 50 years, and I had no fucking idea. So you told me about it, and I was like, okay, so what is this shit? Okay, so the other day, though, I'm always looking for something new to watch when my shows end, and a lot of my shows have ended, and I'm depressed and sad, and I'm looking for new material. So I'm looking on Netflix, and we have our American Netflix, and I don't know if you have this there or not. Will Ferrell, the comedian, right? And Rachel McAdams, you know her. And
I know
Pierce Brosnan,
Don't
you know him.
Don't worry. I've seen it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to talk to you about Eurovision, the story of Fire Saga.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Because I know it's a silly movie, and honestly, I laughed my ass off. It's a brilliant. No, it's a great movie.
It's a great movie. As a Eurovision fan, I give it a thumbs up. It works. That's my
works. Question. Okay. Is the portrayal, and I know it's a comedy, and I know it's a silly comedy, but is the portrayal of Eurovision accurate in your mind when they talk like the other artists and like the way they're presented in the show itself? Eurovision, not the backstories.
I would say the film is very accurate, even though it's a ludicrous comedy. Okay.
It's totally ludicrous.
And remember too,
the dumbest shit.
Well, the other thing too, this film was done in cooperation with Eurovision. This was not done.
Okay.
But Eurovision worked with them on this. Okay, so take that on board. No, the one thing which is kind of ludicrous is when after the first semi-final. They go to a party with. I'll just say this: they go to a party where at least 10 to 15 ex-Eurovision Song Contest winners turn up, and they all go into some sort of what are those movies? Where they do
a comedy. Like it's a I wanted to know. Yes, I actually asked because I was watching this with my mother. I said, "Did Elizabeth Banks make this movie?"
And she did.
I thought.
Yeah, okay, she did. Yes is the yes. Now the thing is that does that shit happen in Eurovision? No. Were all those people?
You don't know what goes on at those parties, Warren. Okay. You don't know. Okay. You're not invited to those after parties.
Were all those people in that scene real Eurovision artists? Yes.
What? All of them?
Yep. That scene when they're in that party.
Wait, the Greek girl?
Yeah, when they're in that
party.
The Greek girl
that's like the...
So
the one that is
more
prominent.
There are a couple of people who are fake. All right, as in obviously Will Ferrell and I've forgotten her name.
Rachel McAdams.
Rachel McAdams, who's a Canadian, is a Canadian, I believe, by birth.
Siegfried.
Now they are meant to be Icelandic. They are, of course, pretend. The Russian is, of course, an American or British. I can't remember. An American.
Sorry.
But where's he? But okay, so he's not Russian.
No gay people in Russia. There's no gay people.
No. But I love the way they played that. It's like I'm gay, but there's no gay. Like we will do the gayest performance, but there are no gay people in Russia. I love that. I thought that was. I mean, that was brilliant. That was so well done. Now the Greek girl, once again, not a Eurovision. That's a made up thing. However,
Okay, she
okay,
had
so
done a bunch of video game stuff, and I thought, really? Okay, so
okay,
yeah, I
now,
liked her a
however,
lot too. So yeah,
in that scene, where they go to the party and they all start singing, right? In
yes,
a pitch
yes,
perfect type
yes.
manner. If you've ever seen
It's
the
perfect.
pitch perfect movies, which I have to admit I
Yeah,
love.
Elizabeth Banks.
I fucking love.
I
I own all.
watched all those movies when I
I
was a kid.
own all
Yeah,
fucking three of them. Or I love them. I reckon they're
I
great
love
fun.
that.
I
I
love it.
enjoy watching
And
them.
this is my whole idea, a rom-com. I love a fucking rom-com. This is the thing I used to argue for years on another podcast that we will not mention. I love a rom-com. What's wrong with a fucking rom-com? What is wrong with two people falling in love and having fun and a comedy background? What is so bad
I
about
have
that?
one. I have one. It's called Meet Me in Ballybride, and it's set in Ireland and different parts of Europe, and you will love it, and I'll tell you about it later.
Okay, all right, we'll have to. Okay, so I love these sorts of movies. So anyway, so in a sense, this movie is a rom-com to a degree. That's what it is.
Yeah, it is.
And the thing is that, but when they do that scene, when they go to that party held by the Russian, right? and now, okay,
Yeah.
everyone in that party is an ex-Eurovision contestant. All of them. Do you remember when you see the... Now, do you remember the guy playing the violin? He goes with the violin.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He was on there.
He won for Belgium. You remember when the woman walked in from the limo?
Who was?
The woman walked in from
I
the
was just
limo.
going to ask about her because
She won from Israel. She was the Israeli contestant.
Israel,
who won for
really?
Israel. Yeah. Every one of them. Wow. There's Belarusians in there. There's and then of course
The German group. German group. They were
all
like.
in. Okay, this movie.
Do you know the character that played Tatiana, the actress that played Tatiana in the beginning, that was from Iceland with them, that was the favorite? That was Demi Lovato.
Yeah.
From here in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay. Now, and I still love it when she's there she's on flames, missing an arm, and she goes, "They're going to kill you." And Will Ferrell says, They already tried, but don't worry, the trolls killed them. How can you keep up with the story? That happened 24 hours ago. Please try to keep up with the story. And I love it. It's fantastic. Can
I tell you my favorite line?
Yeah.
Can I tell you my favorite line
Yeah,
from the movie? Oh no, the elves went too far.
As he finds a knife on the back and the door goes bang, fine.
Don't tell people things.
Sorry.
Don't tell people things. It was brilliantly done, and it was unexpected. And
yeah.
even though I thought there's some reason they're bringing these elves into the storyline and making it important, because what I've learned over now decades of trying to learn how to write scripts properly and make a show that actually means something is what I've learned is literally every moment on screen has to mean something. If it doesn't belong there. So either your show is bad, or everything you see on screen, even if you don't immediately understand that it has meaning, will also have meaning later. It will, if it's a good script. So I'm not saying this was the best movie I've ever seen, but damn, I laughed my ass off. Like, I laughed out loud so many times. But I'm just going to say also, I have to admit, I'm really easily impressed. Things don't have to be great for me to enjoy them. I just have to be entertained.
Did you see, I think it's when they're doing the scores for the first round, and if you look, you will see Australia listed in 8th place.
Yeah.
Which is very okay. Now, to me, I have to take my hat off to them because it was no. That's cool. I mean, I don't have a problem with that because there were no winners or losers in this show. They never said who won Eurovision. If you realise, if you watch it, they never said who won, and also there's no concept of the semi-finals. They do the semi-finals and they go through, but there's not I thought it was great for me personally. No, but for me personally, for Will Ferrell, who actually said that this is a bit of a passion project, was that the whole idea he didn't forget us. because it is very easy for an American making a movie about Eurovision to forget Australia. And he didn't. And I thought, no, I don't think you realise just how big of a deal this is. I thought that was really nice.
I don't because
right?
I don't like I didn't know about it, but I do understand your passion for it because like in a way because you've been talking about it one for so long, and two you've told me about how you guys wanted so desperately to be involved with it, but you weren't, and then you were allowed in, and I know how much that meant to you because it had gone on for so long.
I can still remember a couple of years ago. I'll tell two people this. And I sent Irish a link to Jessica Melboy's video clip of the song that she was going to do in Eurovision. This was about 3 years ago or something, right? And I sent it through, and Iris is like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And I go, "Retweet it, man, retweet it. It's the Australian. She's an Aboriginal, and she's talking about how the fact we all have to be one people."
Did you really?
And it's like, it's like in the world of Trump. We've got an Aboriginal Australian going on the European stage saying we all have to be one people. This is beautiful. This is what Eurovision's about.
You sent this to me during Trump?
And I said...
2015, you just said. He wasn't in there yet. Shut up.
No, I didn't say 2015. I said a couple of years ago. Anyway, he was...
I thought you said 2015. Okay.
No. And I said, retweet the shit out of it. And I think he just went, retweet. It's like, oh, fuck, Irish. But the problem was you didn't realise what it was about. Man. You didn't know what it was about. To you, it was just like Warren sort of saying, please retweet this. And you go, yeah, right, retweet. Right, but you didn't know what it was about. And I'm so glad now that you understand what Eurovision is about and how important it is. And,
Warren, 3 years ago, I didn't even really know what it was at all. And you said, oh, it's like this huge thing with songs and they represent their country. And I was thinking, we have an American Idol too. What the fuck, man? Nobody...
I know. I love the way in the movie, though, that he meets up with these Americans and they say, oh,
my God,
is that like American, or is that The Voice? I think he said, is that The Voice?
It's The Voice. No, it's not The Voice.
It's like, really? Do you know, this is the second most popular event in the world after the Olympics. There is the Olympics,
I told you.
And then there is Eurovision. And how do you guys not know about
Americans
this?
Don't care. Because America. Because, no, I'm sorry. That's not right. Because America.
But it's like the second most... Okay, so we've got the Olympics, and then we have Eurovision, the second biggest global event in the world, and you guys have never heard of it. How the fuck are you that isolated when you dictate to us the world wants to be America? Well, clearly...
Is that a serious question?
I don't know. I just dropped my bottle of wine.
What just happened, Warren?
I dropped a bottle. I got excited.
I want to know what just happened.
No, you don't wanna... I'll tell you off screen. I can't actually tell you on because... Don't worry. Anyway, I just dropped something. Let's just say that. Anyway.
If I tried to keep quiet what I had just dropped, people would be insinuating all sorts of innuendo-y things, and I'm just going to say.
No one would say that. No one would say that.
I've gotten some DMs. Okay.
Really? Really? What sort of world do we live in? Really? That's just not right.
A testosterone-fueled world? I don't know. Right. A lonely guy world? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not okay, right. Look, you can still be polite and be lonely.
And I'm not opposed... Well, I'm not opposed to polite people.
You can still be lonely and want to reach out. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to say, oh, were you in the basement doing beep with beep with beep with beep? No, you don't have to fucking tweet that. Can't you just tweet, hello, I'd like to say hello. I thought your Twitter page was interesting and you looked really beautiful. Can't you just leave it at that? Why the fuck do you have to send a tweet saying, did you beep your beep with your beep with your beep? Sorry. Was that inappropriate?
I don't know what email. Well, I don't know what DMs you've been sending, but I'm just going to say I don't even get that much of a conversation.
Really?
Sometimes I get a picture of a flaccid unit that should never be seen by anybody. even the person who owns it. I feel like it just should be kept to themselves. And I have been polite on this particular account, the one I wasn't in timeout for a week, which I recently have come back from, and I'm trying to behave, and it's so hard. And anyway, innuendo.
The reason why they're doing it because they're cucks. They're cucks.
Well,
they're cucks. No. They
don't use
sexually.
Shakespearean language with me, sir. Don't use Shakespearean language
They
with me.
get sexual pleasure from you not liking them. In other words,
I just ignore those.
No, but the problem is...
here's the thing.
Yeah.
I have been very reserved in what my response would be because I have respect for the people on my timeline who follow me. What I would like to do is take these pictures and these comments and post them straight up and call these people out. I will not do that because I am not that kind of person.
Yeah, because you're a nice
person. But I will ignore them. Here's my rule. At least on my personal account, which is at the Irish Stewart on Twitter. My rule is do not
Irish Stewart.
DM me.
Just so if anyone knows, it's the Irish Stewart Twitter. There we go. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's my thing. Yeah.
Go. Sorry. Yeah, go.
Okay. Here's my rule about DMs on that account, especially. I'm just going to fucking ignore you or tell you to fuck off on my political account because that's just the kind of girl I am over there. But on this one, I had made a decision. Oops, I banged my elbow. I made a decision to be a nicer person. Okay,
be a nicer person. I've seen you send tweets saying "fuck off, asshole." Be a nicer person.
Not on that account. You have not, sir. Okay. Not on that account. I like to pretend I'm somebody better there. So let's be clear.
All right. So the other account. All right.
About DMs on my personal account are: do not DM me unless 1, you have seen me naked in person, or 2, we are working on something together. If we're working on something together, you don't have to have seen me naked in person, and I pretty much guarantee you will not see me naked in person.
But they're not. If you're working on a job, they're not going to be tweeting you.
You know what? If you don't have enough balls to tweet me straight up on a public sphere, then don't fucking say it to me. If you can't say it to me publicly, don't fucking say it to me. That's the thing.
Oh, hang on. Sorry. Sorry, are you saying that people are sending you messages privately, which are
DMs?
Oh,
messages. Those are my rules.
Oh, okay. So I misunderstood what you meant.
Flaccid penises. Penises with an invitation. Like I want to see that.
I thought you meant this has been done publicly.
Somebody else would see that. No, they have the audacity to pretend to be a nice person in public and then to send me stuff that is inappropriate that nobody wants to see ever. Right. Okay? And I don't care who they are. Like, if I don't solicit a dick pic from you, don't fucking send it to me. And if you had sent it to me on my political account, I would post it in a fucking second and I would post your @name. This time, I don't. I'm going to ignore you. But I'm going to say, don't do that. Don't send me these things. I'm not interested. Okay? I don't care about the size of your dick, which is usually, and I'm going to say, so not impressive.
What? Yeah. I was starting to go down a path with that, but I remember speaking to a woman once who had an account who got an enormous amount of dick pics on her account.
Who told them they wanted to see that?
Well, she did because she was a very sexual account.
Well,
okay.
Well, that's different.
So I'm not going to. So as I remember saying to her at the time, it's the way, don't complain about something if you're
ask for it.
Just because you don't like the particular picture you get. You asked for the fucking pictures. You can't complain about what arrives, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
But
the thing was that this was all a game. It was about choosing who was like okay. And if you were a guy and you didn't get what that fucking game was, you were pretty fucking stupid. Or Or you got the game and you wanted to play because you either wanted to be the fucking master or the cuck. That was the whole idea. And I remember saying to her, did you get enjoyment out of doing that? And she goes, fuck yeah, I get huge enjoyment out of doing it. I said, all right, well, that's okay. Well, that's you. I mean, that's who you are. You know, that's okay. And I said, as long as you don't have a problem that when we send tweets, it's nothing to do with fucking sets. She goes, that's all right. Don't worry, everyone knows that. And I said, what do you mean everyone fucking knows that? Right? You know, and so... anyway.
Can I tell you somebody that I admire this week?
That was a really weird Twitter account. I still... Anyway, no, sorry. Yeah. Go on. No, okay. Go on.
So, in this, thought process, there was somebody that I saw on Twitter that I actually really now admire. I had no idea who they were. Okay. It's something that happened on Instagram. And then this person also had created an OnlyFans account. Okay. You know OnlyFans?
Yeah,
you know that
kind of showing
so they sell pictures. Camera? Okay.
Yeah, I don't like OnlyFans.
Or they sell. Okay, well, I'm just saying people put different levels.
I've got friends who do it, and
I'm not judging people who do.
Yeah, no, but I don't. Yeah, but I am. I don't like it. I just think it's fucking.
Well, then don't look at it. Here's my thing. Yeah. Okay, this is why I admire this person. Okay, and I don't know if I should give their @name. I don't necessarily want to.
Don't,
okay,
don't,
so
don't,
here's the thing. Don't. Okay, I'm not going to. Okay, it's a woman, and I'm going to say the woman looks fine, and I'm not opposed to appreciating physical beauty of females. Okay, I'm just not. I'm probably 70-30 bi. So I have to appreciate it, but that doesn't mean I want to live with them.
I just want to go back and say, I'm probably 70-30 bi. It doesn't work that fucking way. You're either
bi. Tell me what works, bitch. What is wrong with you?
I fucking love
you. You don't know what's going on in my head.
Look, I'm 50% gay. I fucking love it.
Do you not understand, varying degrees and shades of gray?
I fucking get it.
Look, here's the thing.
My fucking wife used to say it all the time. I fucking love it. It's hilarious. I love it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't you compare me to her.
No, I'm trying. No, I'm not. I find it. Look, all I'm saying is, no. Can I just say something before you go on? I fully understand what you're saying. I really fully understand what you're saying. I really do, because I have been so in this fucking scenario before. What I'm trying to say to you is, I still find it fucking hilarious. So just go for it. I'm not trying to have a go. I'm really not. I'm so sorry.
I don't personally see that anything is black and white. Okay, everything has shades of gray. Here's my thing. I realized that I was probably a little bit bi when I was younger, probably about my sophomore year of high school, 10th grade. Because I realized that a character that I had seen on TV that I was super obsessed with for some reason, what I realized later is that I probably had kind of a girl crush on her. Okay. That doesn't mean that I want to have a marriage or a full-on life with somebody of the same sex.
But that's what being bi is. That's what being bi is. That's what being bi is. Sorry, go on.
70-30. Okay, shut the hell up. There's degrees. Okay, I'm not saying because I'm not. Well, me. Okay, I'm not gonna.
No,
okay, I'm just no.
Okay, so here 70-30.
Okay, so 70-30. What it is that I really can appreciate beautiful women. I understand why people are attracted to beautiful women. I look at some women and I just go, God damn, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't have sex with you, but it also doesn't mean that I want to have a life with you. I don't want to have a relationship.
Oh, fuck
I'd probably be a really shitty lesbian. Okay? I'd be a real dick about it. That's all I'm going to say.
All I can say is that someone in my life, which you know who I'm talking about, okay?
Yes.
Okay? Used to say, it's simply, am I attracted to women and do I like to have sex with women? Absolutely. Will I ever marry one? Fuck no. Okay?
Yeah.
I get where you're going with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's so not that simple. This idea of 70-30. I really get where you're going. Do not get me wrong. Please
that's the
don't.
epitome of
No,
simple.
if you were
70-30 is the epitome of not simple.
if you and Amanda were talking right now, you two would go,
look,
sisters, slap hands. Yeah, we get where we're going. We know exactly what we're talking about.
Warren, I could do that with somebody who liked Pinot Grigio. Okay, that's not the like limit. Okay, here's the thing.
For me, it's a little bit
what I found out about myself. It's not that I haven't had experiences, because I have, and I'm just going to say what I found out about myself is that I treat women like the trashiest, most biggest asshole man on the planet. So it's probably not the greatest idea. And I'm also just not that concerned about their feelings in those moments. Okay. So I probably shouldn't do that. That's why I'm saying 70-30. I like men, although I could have sex with women if I like them. I just don't care about them afterwards. That's all.
Well,
and that's wrong. It's a wrong thing. I get that. So I just don't do that anymore.
No, but there's no such thing as wrong. I mean, the whole hang on. But you look at some famous bisexuals, of which so Lindsay Lohan is clearly a bisexual. Okay, now Lindsay Lohan. Well, no, what I'm trying to say is she dates a guy one week and she dates a girl the next week, dates a guy the week after that. She's bisexual. What's the problem with that?
I don't have any problem with that. That's her. I don't have any problem with that.
You know what I mean?
I want her to be happy with who she finds.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But I
have something in my life.
I just don't get this 70-30. I get what you're trying to say. That you're majority straight, but it's like
that's the random number I threw out to illustrate my point.
Don't worry,
I feel like
can I just say something very quickly, listeners.
Please?
I'm stirring the shit out of Irish, just so you know. I'm stirring the shit out of Irish. All right, so we will continue now. Irish, please continue. Tell me about this 70-30 thing.
See, now you've given it up, Warren.
I
know your shit. Now I know your game.
I had to because I was a little bit afraid that people might think that I was. We live in a world right now where certain jokes can only be taken so far before people have to realize they're jokes.
I just admitted that I treat women that I would have sex with like trash afterwards. Okay,
actually, here's the point. Maybe we should be talking about that. That's actually really bad. I mean, that's actually really fucking bad. To be honest,
I know.
With you.
It's my worst quality.
You know,
except for my narcissism. Other than that, yeah.
Narcissism? You are a narcissism? I cannot believe you've ever talked about yourself in the first person. Never.
Well, you know what? I feel like your biggest problem is your sarcasm.
Yeah, I have to admit, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. It's a bit like I can't remember. There's a famous British comedian. It might have been an American comedian actually, who made the comment once that
letters.
Who actually made the comment that as a kid he realised that if you were going to be a failure, the only way you could succeed was being funny, and then people might think that you actually intentionally made it. And something in that. Now. Well, I thought there's something in that. You know, there is something in that. Like if everything has gone to shit. I'm not drinking
this red wine, boxed wine anymore. This red boxed wine.
You say something funny when everything has fallen apart, and people think maybe you intended it. I don't know. You know, I do not.
I'm worried about the emails I'm going to get tomorrow. And I don't care.
For fuck's sake, everyone loves you. You've got a following of fucking people that's like, Irish, we're not worthy. We love you. We love you. You've got a fucking follower. You know how Trump has this group of people who will fucking drink the Kool-Aid. You have got this group of people who love you. They think that you are wonderful because of what you talk about, what you tweet, and the fact that you're fucking sexy as well, which doesn't hurt, okay? And so the whole point is you've got this huge fan base. No one is ever going to complain about anything you say except for fucking Ted Cruz, and he doesn't count.
Okay. I have no idea what to say to that.
It's the truth, isn't it?
I thought about something to say about halfway through it, and as you continued on, my brain just went, wait, what is happening right now?
Take a compliment. Take a compliment. Take a compliment.
I'm not taking the compliment.
I'm
trying to decide how to respond appropriately. I just had a drink of wine, and I said I wasn't going to drink anymore. Okay. Look, people know about me what I want them to know, and if people, which they do, people, and I've known some of these people, and I say known in air quotes because I don't personally know them, but I've interacted with them a long time on Twitter. I understand that some of them are those people. I hope that some of those people may have come for that reason, but also stayed because I am incredibly fucking charming and witty. Also,
they do. They wouldn't be there otherwise.
No, listen. Also, at times, a goddamn train wreck, and I understand I am. Everybody has their issues. And so, I'm not manic. I'm often just drunk. I'm not intending to be that way, but we're all trapped in our homes, which you know. This is a difficult time for all of us. But I have to say, I do appreciate the people that have stuck with me through that stuff. And I'm not going to lie, there's days when I'm really down and I have to post a picture of myself, which is stupid, but I appreciate the nice things people say to me because sometimes I'm just feeling really shitty. And yeah, I didn't used to have the internet to make me feel better, and sometimes I do.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with a bit of a slap on the back. You're looking great. You're looking fantastic. Wow, great outfit. Looking fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great.
Oh no, I just know that it's pathetic.
It's not.
No, I do. I know what I'm doing.
We all
Let's
do
not
it.
joke.
We all do it for each other, and we live in.
And you post pictures of your watches.
Yeah, and if you go back to my timeline 2 years ago, you see I'll be doing pictures of myself. And in the last 12 months, I've sort of gone, no. Because I'm living in lockdown and I probably don't want to see the unshaven fucking mess that I am right now. So, no. It's
like worse if I said I was unshaven. Okay, so
you said no sexual innuendo. Boom, boom.
It was sexual. What's wrong with you? I'm just saying there could be times. When we're all trapped in our homes, when I would say, who fired the gardener? But no, I'm not going to go there.
I went to a nightclub 20 years ago. I still remember there's this band, and they had this song called Hairy Armpits, about a woman who had hairy armpits. It was the song. It was called Hairy Armpits, Hairy Armpits. It's like, oh, fuck me, really?
Well, I guess in some circles... that's a sign of non-conforming. And
anyway,
cheers to them then. We've gone off the rails today.
We have. We
were talking about things.
We do.
I've had too much box wine, and I'm just going to say again, I don't know how much of this I've had, but it is just fucking awful. But
it generally is. It generally is. Well, I've been.
I've also. Revealed things I probably shouldn't have.
Well, I've been. I think many people who follow me, a whole 100 or something like that. I have
because you keep changing shit. That's why.
Yeah, because I get into fights with people, and anyway, I'm not going to go down that path. Anyway, so
fuck them.
Yeah, I know. Everyone keeps telling me. Everybody keeps telling me I should do that, and I don't because. They have fucking people who are very aggressive and I don't. Because my people are nice and theirs are aggressive. So, that's just the way life works.
I'm not nice.
Anyway.
You want me to fuck the world up? I'll do that shit.
Well, Okay, if it
I'm
ever
here for
happens,
you.
if it ever happens
So
again, I'm gonna unleash Irish. I'm gonna unleash her. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Don't make me. Warren, I was just in timeout the whole 7 days
Yeah, I know.
on my political
Anyway.
account, and it was too much.
Anyway.
And I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I need to say this.
Yeah.
During that time, while I was in timeout on my political account, and I didn't want to put this on my regular account, we lost somebody in our country that was a huge, huge influence on me in my life when I learned about them. And I have to say, and it was Congressman Representative John Lewis from Georgia. And rarely in our existence in this country, and I'm thinking probably in the world, do you find somebody whose entire life was devoted to doing the right thing for other people, putting every bit of energy they had into making life better for others? And Representative John Lewis was that person. I don't know how much you know about him from Australia.
I've never heard of the man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can I just say, no disrespect,
Yeah.
but
No. It's not that I don't expect you necessarily to know about it, because being from Australia, and I admit, Americans don't know shit about people in your country.
Can I just say something, and then please, I want you to tell a story. And that is, there is a great line from the 3rd season of Jersey Shore. I don't know why I'm quoting from this, but I think it sums it up. Okay? No, please, when you hear it, I think it'll make sense.
No, I'm interested. Yeah,
okay,
I'm interested.
You've got these guys and girls, and these 2 girls from the Jersey Shore show, and they're in an Italian cafe, and the waitress sort of says, "Oh, you're where are you from?" And they go, "We're from Jersey, baby. We're from Jersey." Okay, which means bullshit nothing to an Italian who says to them, "Oh, you mean Guernsey, the British Islands, right?" And they looked at them, and they've never heard of Guernsey, let alone probably don't even know that Britain's a country, right? And they look at them going, "What?" But the Italian is saying, "Right, I have no idea what you're talking about." And all I was just meant by that is that this American attitude, and I'm not having to go at you, please do not, I'm not having to go, please, that anyone in the world understands your internal politics. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
I know.
But there is an attitude that Americans...
Look, that's something I know for sure.
I can still remember saying to an American on a podcast fucking 4 years ago, "Why do you always introduce yourself by your state and not by your country?" And
I do that too. I do that too, because I said it earlier. I'm from Florida, like everybody knows where the fuck Florida is.
And it's like, well, hang on.
Like,
I'm from Malaysia. Yeah, anyway, please continue. I'm sorry. I just wanted to... I'm sorry.
No,
Please
it's
continue.
okay. No, I get what you're saying. And I admit over and over again to you that we have arrogance in America where we don't understand or care or hear about other countries' things. We just don't. And it's not that I'm proud of it, especially right now, because we have so much shit going on here that we are focused on. But even before that, we just didn't care.
But no,
and I'm going to be honest with you. Okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. And I would like people, if you don't know who he is, please look him up.
Yes.
Congressman John Lewis. And he was the son of sharecroppers in Alabama. He came from nothing. He was from a place called Troy. I'm sorry, Georgia. I'm sorry. It's not Alabama.
Troy.
It's Georgia. I'm sorry.
I was about to
Troy,
say what?
Okay?
In the Mediterranean, he fought the Greeks.
Warren. No.
Sorry.
Anyway,
sorry.
When he was 17, he stood up in his church, okay, which I'm not a Christian, but he stood up in his church and he gave a sermon that moved people in a way, okay, 17 years old. They called him at the time the boy preacher from Troy, 17 years old, and he wrote a letter to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And you know him, right? You know about him?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
One of our biggest civil rights icons.
The world knows
he
about
wrote a letter to him. Thank you. I hope so. John Lewis wrote him a letter at 17, talking to him, and he came physically, when he came to a place where John Lewis was, specifically to meet him. Okay. He said, I want to meet the boy from Troy. And that's the way he referred to him. When the movement for civil rights was really reaching its peak, he was one of like 5 people who spoke during the March for Selma, stood up on the stage with Martin Luther King Jr. and spoke. And he was a young man, like 23 years old. And we have this big civil rights thing here that happened, which was the March to Selma. I don't know how much you guys know about that, but it was black people.
Yeah, we learned about it at school.
Okay.
Yeah, we learned about it at
again,
school.
a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's wonderful. A young man like him standing and walking within a shoulder of Martin Luther King Jr. on the March to Selma for civil rights, a nonviolent protest of them just walking. They crossed a bridge called the Edmund Pettus Bridge. That Edmund Pettus was a grand dragon or a grand wizard, I think, of the Ku Klux Klan. They named that bridge for him in honor of him trying to destroy the rights of black people during the time of Jim Crow and the Civil War. There was a lot of stuff that came up after that, but literally it was based on the fact that he was suppressing the rights of African Americans, and they named this bridge for him. So the marchers from Selma, it was Alabama. It is Alabama. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't think right now because I've had too much wine and I feel
it doesn't
really
matter.
bad.
Doesn't matter.
No, it matters, but right now I can't fix it. So I'm just going to say.
But the story.
He came across the bridge of Selma, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, in a nonviolent, simple march across the bridge. And police were on the other side, and they met them with violence. And John Lewis, who was 23 years old at the time, had his skull fractured by a police baton on that bridge after crossing it. These people were doing nothing but simply quietly marching for their rights. And police, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier in our country, we had had a systematic problem with policing in our country from the beginning of fucking time. And what people are marching for right now, Black Lives Matter, this is just an ongoing struggle that they have been fighting for decades and decades. And this man, John Lewis, from the time he was 17, spent his entire life doing nothing but working for the civil rights of others. Okay? Had his head cracked open. He'd been arrested multiple times. And then he became a member of Congress. He died of cancer, pancreatic cancer, last week while I was in timeout on my political account. And I didn't have a chance to say anything. But I have to say that, one, I think that man was a saint. And in my lifetime, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody that spent their entire, from the time they were at least 17, talking about and working hard for civil rights for people. And about 5 years ago, I guess it was 5 years ago in March, I had written a tweet during the time of the anniversary of the March to Selma, when Barack Obama was marching across the bridge and symbolically with John Lewis and other people. And I thought, and I know I wasn't the first person to have this thought, but I thought, this bridge is named for a man who was a racist and a Ku Klux Klan leader. And and the same thing that's going on with the statues in our country right now, where people are trying to tear them down, these symbols, the Confederate symbols, the statues of Columbus, all this stuff that just represents the constant suppression of people of color in our country, and of indigenous people. I had suggested in my tweet that I mentioned Edmund K. Pettus was the, Grand Wizard of the KKK, and it's time for the bridge to be renamed. My suggestion was to be renamed the Congressman John Lewis Bridge. And I put this tweet out, and it was before I was shadow banned. And I don't want to say I'm shadow banned in the sense of I'm griping about it, but I am.
Yeah.
I am on that account. It's fine. because I don't care about how many people I reach. I just use it. So
no, but you were wrongly.
That's not the reason I was
wrongly.
I don't know. I say fuck you a lot to people.
No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay,
the president is allowed.
Here's the thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. 5 years ago, when I tweeted that, people that were on my timeline and could actually see my tweet, they were beautiful. They actually really promoted my tweet, and they tagged Lawrence O'Donnell from MSNBC. I don't know if you know him or not, but he has a great show at about 10 p.m. He's somebody who I've admired for a long time. He's a big progressive rights person. Bless you. Or Gesundheit, or whatever you say.
Yes.
Or if you're a Seinfeld fan, you're so good looking. Okay, so I don't know the difference in that.
Pardon me. I was about to hit mute, and I didn't do it in time. Sorry.
No, just sneeze. You can't have it. In 2015, people amplified my tweet, tagging him in it. And I got tweets, I don't know if it was March 10th or March 3rd, something like that. It was the day, and I can't remember right now because I've had too much shitty wine.
That's all right.
I was told by somebody that, oh my God, you're famous. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, it turns out that people had amplified my tweet by tagging Lawrence O'Donnell, and he actually mentioned me on air by name with my suggestion to rename that bridge after Congressman John Lewis. And here's the thing. I'm not bragging that he did, although I was really fucking honored, honestly. What I realized later is when I heard John Lewis was dead, I cried. I really cried. And then I thought, I have to say something and I can't. And then I thought, oh, and here was my ego. I'm going to admit, I remember when Lawrence mentioned me on his show and I was saying this thing about John Lewis, and then I couldn't tweet it, and I might have, okay, because even though the actual clip is not available online, I have it saved on my computer, and somebody took the time to download it and send it to me, which I thought was really nice. What I realized afterwards, with the time that I had, a day or so to really think about it and really mourn him as an American, is that my ego had said to me, tell people about that time Lawrence tweeted, mentioned you on air about your tweet. But what I realized was that was stupid. What really actually has impacted me is that I had the fucking honor of being mentioned in the same segment as somebody who did so much for this country like John Lewis, by somebody like Lawrence O'Donnell, that I had the fucking honor of even existing in that world for a moment. And that moved me to so many more tears. And I have had the roughest week. I've had a lot of shit going on. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Privately. And John Lewis dying I knew it was coming. We knew he was sick. We knew he'd been out of Congress for a little bit, but 2020 sucks, man. They're taking so many people from us.
I'm not,
the 83 months that has gone on in 2020, in my mind, it's the worst.
I mean,
So much has happened, but goddamn, I just want to say to people who might realize I didn't say anything about John Lewis is that I literally didn't know how to come back after days and days of him being gone. And today was his funeral. It was posted, and I just thought, what an arrogant, shitty thing it would be for me to tweet about that, because I feel like it would be more about me. But I really just wanted to mention it. And I wanted to mention how much I honored him and how much I respected him and how much our country needed and still needs people like him, and how rare someone like him is, and how I have now realized just what a goddamn honor it was to even be mentioned in the same paragraph as him. in public. So I just want to say that. And,
yeah. I get it. I fully understand. I fully understand. I really do. I really do. I really do.
Glad you do, because I'm not sure I do, but it was kind of overwhelming for me too. I fuck up a lot. I have a lot of narcissistic shit in my head. I get really selfish at times. I'm super childish and immature. And then I try, after it's happened, I step back and I go, what was that? Like, what are you doing? And I am not always a good person. I try to be a good person, but I think sometimes we do the best we can. And I'm going to quote, shit. That's bad. I started getting upset, and then
emotions do that.
Quote, yeah, I can't even think of her name right now, but I see her face and I honor her. We do the best we can until we know better, and when we know better, we do better.
Yeah.
And I think John Lewis and this realization of the honor it was to just be fucking mentioned in the same sentence as him or the same paragraph made me know better. And I hope now that I know better that I will continue to do better.
Well, can I tell you a story about me wanting to do better?
Yeah. Okay. Can we take a break for 1 second?
We absolutely can. So we'll be back in just a few seconds. We need that. No, we do. We do. Okay. We'll be right back.
Yeah, okay.
And we are back, timey-wimey. Okay. Hey, I was going to ask you something. Actually, first of all, before I say anything, do you know I've done even an apology to the podcast world? Because,
wait, why? What did we do?
Because, okay.
I don't care.
No, me. No, me. Do you know, last podcast, we were talking about Magnum P.I., about the old series and the new series. And do you know, I got something very, very wrong that was pointed out to me, which I didn't even realise I had said.
And I want to know what it was. Well, I want to know what it was and who pointed it out.
Well, I'm going to blame Scotch, all right? So we're blaming Scotch, okay? And that was that we were talking about the Ferrari, and I said the 418. Now, okay. Now, the Ferrari...
Are you really? Okay.
Well, yeah, it was pointed out to me, and it's quite true. The Ferrari driven by Magnum is, of course, the Ferrari 308. Okay? So, yes, I'm sorry, I did get that wrong. I just, honestly, I knew there was an 8 in there, and... Yeah?
Warren, I just want people to imagine my eye rolling during this. Let me just say... with that, okay?
Yeah, but there are people who take these things. I mean, look, for instance, watch fans. Here is a classic fan. What watch was worn by Magnum P.I.? Magnum P.I. by Thomas Magnum.
Right.
Was it a Rolex or not a Rolex? Yeah, this
How
is
the
very.
Fuck would I know that?
Well, this is fans to get
you would because you noticed that.
Yeah, but fans can get very upset if you say the wrong thing. If you say the wrong thing, fans can get really upset. Wars. No, but I got the car wrong. Well, actually, to me, Magnum is more than Star Wars.
I want to know who bothered to tell you that.
No.
I want to know.
No, I'm not going to say it on air. I'm not going to say it on air. I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm not.
Okay, so answer this. Is it a personal friend or is someone on the internet?
It was a personal friend that heard the show who actually said, for fuck's sake, you can't even get the name of the car right, and you called yourself a fan.
Oh, dear God. I know who it is.
No, it's not. It's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. You're thinking of someone else. It's not. It's not that person.
Yeah.
It's not. No.
Okay, well then, okay. All right.
No, it's not.
I just want to say to that person, and I don't know who they are, and maybe they're wonderful, but dear God, no. Who cares? That's all I'm going to say.
Well, it's important. I mean, pardon me. If you are a fan, I suppose this stuff is important.
Talking about Star Wars and the physics
Well,
of
but hang on,
lightsabers.
see,
Okay,
I'll
that
be
was
honest
the
with
thing.
you.
Then maybe that would be an issue.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you. I kind of don't disagree with them. That I think that the following of Magnum PI is every bit as important as the following of Star Wars. What's really the difference? Now,
I follow them both.
have I opened a can of worms?
No,
is this a can of worms I've opened? But is there a difference?
In
is
general.
there a difference?
Well, I mean, physically, sure, there's probably a difference in the body style of the cars, but here's my
No,
point.
I meant the show.
Who fucking cares?
The cars. There's no. Hang on. What the fuck are we talking about? No, what I said was,
Warren,
is there a difference?
Warren,
in
I drive a Jaguar convertible XJ8 from 2002.
Okay, can I just say to everybody, Iris drives a Jag. You know what that means? As in the words of Jeremy Clarkson, she's a Jag driver. If you walk into a hotel and you sort of say, "Oh, I need a room in the hotel," well, who's paying the bill? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I drive a Jag. It's like, sorry.
An Alfa Romeo. Shut up.
Okay,
anyway,
sorry.
It's not. I don't.
I drive a fucking Alfa. What's the?
Do you want to know what I drive? No. Yeah. You want to know what I drive?
Yeah.
I drive most of the time my favorite vehicle, which is a ridiculously old 1997 Eddie Bauer edition Ford Explorer, which yesterday rolled over to 208,000 miles.
Miles? That's about a billion in real measurement. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, fuck you. We're Americans. We don't know shit about the metrics.
I'm trying to have fun with you. I'm trying to have fun with you.
Don't make me feel bad. It makes me cry.
Sorry.
Do you want to make me cry, Warren?
No.
Do you want to be responsible for making me cry? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you make me cry, I'm going to make your life hell. That's what's going to happen.
And listeners,
I'm not saying
she
that
really
because
will.
I want it to happen.
No, she really will.
I'm just saying it
just
because that is the historical accuracy of what has happened. I just want to say for listeners to know that she really will destroy my life. So, no, that is not what I want. It would destroy your life.
Oh, dear.
Live on the other side of the planet. I said I would make your life hell, which I could do, even from the other side of the planet.
I fucking love it. Oh, dear. I don't care about that. I just want to know the Jag.
Warren.
But here's the thing. You drive a cool Jag, okay? You drive a cool Jag, okay? Now, but this is the whole point. And I've seen photographs of you in the cool Jag. In fact, I think there was even one this week of you in the cool Jag.
There was because I didn't show the car. I just said it was a top-down kind of day, and yes, it was. And I was right.
Okay, now here's my argument, or here's my piece of cocktail and conversation. Right? You drive a very cool British car. Okay, I drive a very cool Italian car. Okay. How cool or important should cars be in people's lives? Like, for instance, like, is it that big a deal? Because I've seen a lot of very hip, cool people, or people who are viewed as very hip and cool, and they're driving Toyotas or Hyundais. Okay, they don't seem to care.
Ooh, I like that pronunciation of that.
Okay.
I think that that's a game too. I think that that's the game of I'm too cool to care. I'm not saying I'm right for driving a car that I feel like is cool, but let me say to you.
But it is.
My
it's
truck
fucking,
is not
cool. So seriously.
Well, that one is. Sure.
No, it's fucking cool.
It's in the garage right now.
In fact,
the other ones sit outside, degrading in the sun.
Wasn't your car in a Sean Connery fucking movie? I stand to be corrected.
If I was in a Sean Connery movie, I would be married to him. What? Right, that's all I'm going to say.
You don't. He's a sexist prick.
Well, here's the thing. Maybe when we got married, he would have been a sexist creep, but afterwards, he would have been a pile of nothing. That's how he treated me. Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, all right. I'll go with that. But wasn't there a movie made in the
I would have
early
actually rather
thousands?
married Billy Connolly.
Well, actually,
Wait,
Billy
what?
Connolly is not a sexist prick. He's actually a very,
I
very.
know. I said I would have rather married Conley. I would have married Billy Conley in like 2 seconds if he had asked. And I know that he has retired because he's having health issues.
Well, he's
and
having health issues and
I would
mental
have,
issues. Yeah.
I would have, yeah. Well, I would have been there for him. That's all I'm going to say.
I actually think that his wife Pamela Stevenson has been doing the same. You know, he's married to a fucking psychiatrist. I mean, you do realise he's married to a fucking psychiatrist.
Well, that's great. I hope they're very happy. I'm
Pamela
just had he
Stevenson
been married to me, things would have been
Pamela,
also.
do you know? Do you actually know how the two of them met? It's a fascinating story.
No, I don't.
Pamela Stevenson. What? You don't want to know? Sorry, what?
I was pretending to be jealous. I'm not.
Sorry.
Because
Okay.
I could never have
Well, Pamela Stevenson, apart from being the hottest of hot women in the 1980s, just Google a picture of Pamela Stevenson from fucking 1981, all right? And you tell me she's not the hottest woman on the planet, all right? So, anyway, she was an Australian. She was an Australian. Pamela Stevenson, she's an Australian. And anyway, she'd moved to Britain for work and was a very unsuccessful sort of model / any fucking thing you could think of, right? She was not
model / actor / spokesperson voiceover
okay, basically anything her agent she could get, she would take, all right?
Okay.
And then she was met by a producer from the BBC at a party, and she had everyone at the party in hysterics, absolutely in hysterics, with not the way she looked, but with her stories, talking about just stuff, right? And there were people...
She was also incredibly charming.
Well, yes, people were not drawn to her because of her looks, but by the fact that she was just so intelligently funny. And anyway, and he was there, and he said, and he goes, "This woman is amazing."
I'm hot for her now.
However, he also admitted that, you know, if he got to bed her, that wouldn't be a bad thing. He's admitted that, so don't worry. Oh, he has admitted that. And anyway, so this I've forgotten the guy's name, but he went on to create QI and huge Blackadder. He was the one who created Blackadder. Okay, so he's very famous fucking man in British TV.
Okay.
And anyway, he had this idea of this show, which would become not the 9 o'clock news, which is where Rowan Atkinson was discovered. And anyway, and they came together with all of these various different comics, and they said we need at least one of the 4 of them must be a woman. And so he said, "I've met this woman at this party. She's amazing." And Pamela Stevenson actually sort of said she got this phone call from him thinking, "Oh my God, here's this guy wanting to fucking take me on a date." And instead he's on the phone sort of saying, "Would you come across to BBC Studios? We'd like to have an interview." And it was for
any
the show.
smart person will think of a reason to contact somebody they're interested in that doesn't involve them being really interested in them.
Well, Pamela Stevenson would go on from an unknown Australian whatever, trying to make it in London, to being one of the most famous people in British society in the 1980s. Everybody fell in love with Pamela Stevenson because not only was she incredibly funny and intelligent, she was gorgeous, right, at the same time. She had everything going for her. She was the Brad Pitt of her time, right? And anyway, so she was in the show, they're doing it, and they would get a number of other comics onto this show. If you've never seen Not the 9 o'clock news, just fucking YouTube it. It is hilarious for its time. Fantastic show. It's where, as I said, where Rowan Atkinson was born. And anyway, Billy Connolly was in a number of the episodes, and there was one time where she had to do a sketch with Billy Connolly, and they were together.
Right.
And she has actually said that they were together for literally half an hour, And she said the first time she saw him was like, who is this covered in hair Neanderthal? Right? This like fucking like she described him as a Neanderthal, right? And she said, but within 60 minutes, she said, this is the man I'm going to marry. And they did.
Cute.
They met that on that show after that. They fell in love and they got married. They are still married today. And this was
wonderful.
And we are talking now the late 70s, early 80s is when they met. They are still together today. It's a beautiful story. The Billy Connolly, it's great.
That's actually wonderful. Yeah, I didn't know about, like, I knew about him when he was a comic. I had seen his stand-up routine, but honestly, it wasn't until the whole cult movie thing he did with Boondock Saints.
Oh, okay.
Honestly,
I went.
Do you remember that film?
Well, yes, but I went to see him in cabaret or stand-up, if you like, in Melbourne, Australia, in about 1985. 1985. I went to see him.
Wow. Okay.
And I saw
that
his
was
show.
Before I'd seen him.
Right, and I actually went.
Is that when he would say that all the Scots, they know that when you shag a sheep, you shag them on the edge of the cliff. That way they push back harder. Is that the whole like? Did he do that routine?
I don't remember that particular routine, but he.
Sorry, I know it was.
But I've something to. I have something to admit to you that which you're gonna hate me for. I went to see him in concert, in stand up, and we were at the Royal Albert. Was it the Royal Albert Conservative Hall or wherever the fuck it was? So I don't know what there was. Fucking 5,000 people there watching him, right? And we're in there, and we're up in the stalls, right up high, and we could see straight down on the stage. There were fantastic seats, wonderful seats that my friend had organised, and there was a group of us. And we were there, and we were watching it, and they were all in hysterics, laughing and going. And I'm sitting there, and I'll be honest with you, I'll tell you this story right now. I'm sitting there going, I've heard that, I've heard that, I've heard that, I've heard that. Everything was just a regurgitation of every interview or record he'd ever done. There was nothing new about the show at all. Everything was just a joke I'd heard before. And there was a couple of jokes that he mentioned about when he was in the army. There was one that was very, very funny about being chased by paratroopers across the Glen, which was fucking funny. That was very funny. And there was another one about being a welder when every time someone took a flash photo and stuff like that. So there were a couple of really good jokes that were in there, but apart from that, that was 5 minutes out of 2 hours, and the rest of it, I'd heard every single joke he said. Like, I'd heard them all before, and I thought, how cheap is that, really? Because, do you know what I mean? I could have bought a record and heard that. Like, we're talking about back then. Right, and
comedy records, yeah.
But my whole argument was
you just reminded me of something.
Yeah.
No.
no.
Okay.
I was just
Billy Connolly. No, go ahead.
I was just going to quickly say.
Go ahead.
Like, is that wrong? Like, is that ripping the public off? And I know he's a beloved comic, and I'm not trying to have a go at Billy Connolly, but I'm not. But I'm talking about anyone, whether it be a musician or a comic, where if you're going to fill out a stadium, and then everyone goes to see you, and all you're doing is doing jokes that you told 5 years ago, is that? I don't know. Do you know? Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know.
Yeah, okay, no, okay. Here's the thing. I'm going to, in his defense, I don't know what the jokes were.
Right.
Sorry, drinking.
It's okay.
Choking. I don't know what his jokes were, but I will say that I have, in the past, written, I'm going to just use Twitter as an example, because that's the thing where instead of actually just yelling at the TV, I type something into Twitter and post it. Like, literally, on my political account, the stuff I say on that is shit I'm yelling at the television. Okay, here's the thing. There are times when I make jokes on Twitter where somebody says something, I see something, and I immediately say, oh, here's my response to that. And it's, in my opinion, fucking hilarious. And it came right out of my brain. And I tweet it. And a little bit later, I see other people have tweeted the same thing, sometimes before me, sometimes after me. They're not people who follow me. I'm not saying I think that they stole my tweet. What I think is that shit that's funny, just like everything else, probably is in, and we've talked about the fact we don't necessarily agree on these things, talking about energy and thoughts. Okay?
Well,
I think thoughts tend to come from, in a sense, from what I have termed, and I don't know what other people might call it or even know what the fuck I'm talking about, the universal consciousness. I think there's so many people in the world, and there's so much energy, and there's so many things flowing, and you see the same thing near the same time, and the way people's brains work, sometimes people come up with the exact same shit as you did. Well, the exact same joke. Maybe it's an obvious joke. And that's why. But I don't think people stole my tweet. But I do think, wow, I wasn't very original there. I thought this was funny as shit, but other people also said the same thing.
No, but,
right?
So
I don't think he intentionally stole the joke.
No.
Maybe it's just an obvious observation.
No. But what if you decided to save all your tweets from 2017 and retweet them all in 2020?
Okay, here's the other
That's
thing.
What I'm saying that he did. It's not that he stole them from other people.
You're saying you heard him say those jokes?
Yes. They were old. It was old material. In other words, he had turned up to say, I've done no work whatsoever for the last 12 months to 2 years. I'm going to tell you all the stories that you've already heard on all the albums that you've bought from me before.
Okay. Here's my thought on that too. Do you know, when you, when you go to a concert of a band that has been around a really long time.
Play the old songs. Yeah, I get that, but
play the old songs and we don't want to hear your new shit.
Yeah, but this is
we
comedy.
Feel comfortable with your
I don't want to hear old jokes.
Okay.
It's like my mother-in-law did. I don't want to hear that. It's comedy. Comedy's got to be new, progressive. Comedy's not music. I listen to fucking Beethoven.
Everybody
I don't
hasn't
expect
heard
Beethoven to start rapping. Do you know what I mean? Beethoven is Beethoven. I don't expect Tchaikovsky. I don't expect the 1812 overture to suddenly go into rap. You know, I mean,
I feel like you're. Well,
I get defensive.
Why not?
Yes, I know.
But also, I know you're getting very worked up. Yeah. I'm just saying. Okay, maybe he felt like he was giving the audience his best material, regardless of whether it was old.
I think he's a cheapskate.
Okay. Oh.
I think he's a fucking cheap, lazy.
I don't do.
I think he was lazy. I'll be honest with you. I think it's lazy. It's very easy
to
tour the world and you gather all the material you've had for the last 3 years and combine it into a show and do it. And you know what? Probably 70% of the audience go, it's so funny, because only 30% of the audience have heard it all before. And if you
that's kind of what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was going to say. I think he was working with traveling and doing a tour in places where people who might wanted to see him, but maybe hadn't heard all the jokes already. Maybe you had, because maybe you pay more attention. I get that. I get how it's boring to hear the same jokes. You're like, ha, 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 ha. Well, it's like, okay, I have somebody in my life that really likes magic, okay, in regards to illusionists. I am not a massive fan of magic. My kid was really good at it for a while. He was into it. I feel like it helped him overcome some insecurities in high school. He had some good outcomes with the attention it gave him. Okay. I also know that when you've seen the same tricks over and over again, you get bored. But now somebody who hasn't seen that trick is still fucking amazed. So maybe in the audience, you have two people in an audience of 80 people. You have two people that have seen the trick and they're not impressed, but the rest of the people have never seen the trick and they're amazed. And after that, they're the ones that talk about that shit to their friends. The other two said, it was a good show, but I'd seen that shit before. The majority of the people are going to hear from the people who hadn't seen it before. I'm not saying that I don't prefer new talent and new tricks or new jokes from people who were out there all the time. But also remember, they're out there all the time. And I think that's a hard job. I don't know how I would feel about putting myself out there for audiences to judge me over and over again. This is hard enough for me. This is like a big deal for me to be able, and I'm like, I know that we don't have an audience like that. I'm just saying, I understand people feeling insecure. And I feel like somebody like Billy Connolly, although I personally, when I saw him, the sheep jokes, I remembered him from that. Okay. I remembered the sheep jokes and the fact that he was Scottish and the hair. I didn't remember his entire routine, but what I started to see him in was films like Lemony Snicket's and Boondock Saints and things like that. And I thought, I love this dude's energy. I love everything about his energy. Yeah, that's what it was for me. I don't care if you are an entertainer or a musician or whatever that's perfect in your performances. I don't give a shit. What I really appreciate about somebody is their individual energy. Well, stuff they like, the way they make me feel when they say the joke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that, I mean, for instance, we can go further than this. I can still remember I had a South African girlfriend at the time, and yes, I can't do the accent, so don't even get me started. But anyway,
so I wasn't going to ask you to do the dialect, but
fucking yes, it's amazing. Anyway,
now I feel like I have to learn a South African dialect.
And she said, my sister and her boyfriend, we're going to go to the comedy festival in Melbourne, and we really want to see Rowan Atkinson. And I said, I fucking love Rowan Atkinson. I grew up with Rowan Atkinson. As I said before, not the 9 o'clock news and all the rest of it. I grew up with him.
Right, yeah.
And I said, I'd love to see him, right? But here's the thing. I had his tapes from when he was an 18-year-old undergraduate, right, doing comedy, okay? Because I was such a fan, okay? So, absolutely I wanted to go and see. So we went to see him, and every single word, it's like, I could mouth it as it came out of his mouth, right? It's like, and for me, it was a little bit like, so I'm at the time 19 years old, and I'm going, I heard this when I was 13. And it's like, and it's the same fucking sketch. And they're all sitting with me going, oh, it's so funny. And I'm there just mouthing it out because I know exactly what's coming out next. I know exactly what's the next word he's going to say. You had more experience than they did. And I suddenly realised that going to see these guys, these amazing comics, I never went and saw one again. After Billy Connolly was the last time I did it. I've never seen one again.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, never. Because I realised that what you get if you're a big fan of what they have done in their life, it's just a regurgitation of their life. And that's fine if you're not a super fan, if you get what I'm trying to say, right? But as soon as...
Yeah, I do.
So, I mean, when I was a kid, I would walk home from school. Get off the tram and have the school bag over my shoulder and my, tie and blazer and all this. And I'd go down and I would try to remember the sketches of Monty Python or of Not the 9 o'clock news, and I would be repeating them in my mind as if I was doing them on stage. Right, I would go through them in my mind, and so the thing is that when you finally see these guys and all they're doing is 10 or 15 or 20-year-old material, it's like, it's like, really, nothing new, nothing. I'm the exact opposite.
Were you a big
of those people who say, I want to hear the hits. I'm only happy if I hear the hits. No, I want to hear the new stuff, not the hits. Well, I want to fucking hear the new stuff. I've grown up with the old stuff. Give me something new. That's my rant over. Sorry.
Well, okay. Yeah. Breathe.
Sorry.
Sorry. You don't have to be sorry. Don't do that. Stop that. I'm going to say that I was a huge fan of stand-up comedy when I was young. And I was exposed to, we talked about the fact that my parents introduced me to Monty Python and Benny Hill when I was I saw Monty Python and the Holy Grail at 8 years old. Okay. We lived in Minneapolis at the time. Yeah. Okay. It kind of formed part of my sense of humor. Okay. My parents thought it was great. They showed it to me at 8 years old, and I was like, this is the best. Okay, so I was obsessed with, at that point, stand-up comedy in general. Comedy. Because from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, they introduced me to Flying Circus. Okay?
Yeah.
And then when we moved to Florida, and I was 10 in fifth grade, they introduced me to, and we went to like an old record store, and they bought me the Smothers Brothers. Do you know them? Did you have them?
No,
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So they were a brother duo comedy team that also did music. It was almost like a variety show. They had the Smothers Brothers Hour, which I was too young to have seen, but I had these albums that they had gotten me, and I loved comedy. Like and for years afterwards, decades afterwards, honestly, if stand-up comedy was on TV, I would turn it on. I loved all the stand-up comedy, like everybody. I didn't care how trash they were. It didn't matter. I would watch it. But the Smothers Brothers, for me, one brother was like the straight guy, the straight player, and the other guy was the comic.
There always is in a two-piece, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So it's this two-piece, right? Okay, so it was Tommy and Dickie Smothers. Tommy was the one who was the comic relief. He played this guy who was just dumb, okay? Dickie was the one who had dark hair, he had a mustache, he played a stand-up bass, and Tommy played a guitar. They would sing, but they had like the most innocent comedy. It was these two people, and they were from the 50s and 60s time period. So there was no like rude comedy. So my parents felt like it was appropriate for me at 10. And to be honest with you, I could have listened to their shit for a million years. They were so funny to me. And I, if you haven't heard the Smothers Brothers, I do encourage you guys, anybody, to go look them up. Some of the stuff that I loved the most was their music. They would play music, and it was beautifully done, but it would somehow always turn into a comedy routine.
So, one of them would
mess up the words, or
what era were they from again? Did you say they were from which era?
50s or 60s.
I'm Vaudeville.
Like
Vaudeville.
60s.
Yeah,
probably.
Vaudeville. They've got a Vaudeville origin. It's like Mortimer and Wise. Mortimer and Wise from Britain. Yeah.
Yeah, and like different jokes that, I mean, their stuff has stayed in my head for years. There's a medieval song, like literally a song from medieval times that they sang. And as they're singing, like the guy who's Dickie, he's the one who was the straight guy. He's playing the bass and he's singing. And as he's singing this thing, they say something about the nightingale. And Tommy starts going in the background very quietly, caw, caw. And you hear him going, like, because one of the lines is the nightingale song dies in the air.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
The thing that would happen is they'd be singing this like very straight song, and it was beautiful. And then Tommy would do something like that, and Dickie wouldn't be able to continue. He'd be like, "What? Wait, what was that?" And the whole routine was built upon the fact that Tommy just literally couldn't do the things they were supposed to do.
Can I tell you something, right? Do you realise, because what I've learned about, I've read one book and seen a number of documentaries about the British comedians Morecambe and Wise, who sound identical to what you're talking about. And one thing I can tell you, you know when you think that they can't continue, it's all ad lib. It's not.
No, this wasn't.
Every bit of it was staged.
Yeah.
And I was
the thing is that I remember their routines like verbatim in my mind. Yeah, I remember them. I literally bought. My parents bought me 2 turtles. I named them Tommy and Dickie Smothers. Like I was 10. You know? It's ridiculous.
I remember I was huge fans of Morecambe and Wise when I was a kid. Another one, look up on Google. If you're British, you probably know who Morecambe and Wise are. If you're not British, you probably don't. I'm Australian, so
Americans.
My age group makes me know who they are. But
I'm going to say my age group probably doesn't know the Muppets.
I still think 2 of the greatest comedians who ever lived, personally, Morecambe and Wise. I think there was something about them that was just so perfect. It was just the whole concept that 2 mates going on stage doing shit with their background of song and dance. So they'd break into song, they'd break into dance, they'd do comedy routines. And I still remember the idea that apparently Eric Morecambe had said to Ernie Wise when they thought, after they made their first attempt at television, and it failed miserably because it wasn't written by them. It had been written by BBC writers who had totally fucked their whole concept up. Right? Yeah. And afterwards, and they said, let's go back to basic. Let's restart. Like, because they were honestly about to end their careers. Just say, fuck it, it's done. Let's go off and learn how to be accountants, right? And apparently Eric Morecambe said to Ernie Wise, let's give it one more shot. And he said, I'll be the stupid guy, you be the smart guy, and let's see what happens. But this is the amazing thing he said, and if it doesn't work, we'll give it up. Because you know what? I'd rather lose a career than my mate. Now, how fucking, like, in other words, they were prepared to throw their careers down the view rather than lose their friendship. Is that not beautiful or what? Like, I mean...
That is actually pretty impressive.
Yeah. I still love the idea, though, when Eric Morecambe introduced his wife to his mother for the first time, they knocked on the door, but she was a chorus girl, you know, like dancing around topless and stuff like that, right? So, so they went back up to Yorkshire and apparently they knocked on the door. She had no idea that she was, you know, they were engaged or anything. Knocked on the door, and apparently the 2 of them stood at the door. His mother answered the door. She goes, meet your new daughter. I'm off for cigarettes. And he left.
Oh, Jesus.
And fucking just left the 2 of them to talk. Oh, and then apparently came back into the house an hour later, like literally putting his head around the side of the door, sort of saying, "You friends yet?" Oh, fuck, yeah. Amazing people. But oh dear, yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, comedians my whole life have made my life better. And also, yeah, I mean, I know we started talking about Billy Connolly and shit, and that's how that we got on this. But yeah, I have to appreciate it. You know, something the other day, I actually watched a film. I don't know if you've seen this film. You know Robin Williams, right? The comedian.
Oh, I think the world knows Robin Williams.
I mean, who doesn't fucking know Robin Williams?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of Robin Williams, but I get him, I understand him, and I know that he is the world's viewed as the world's greatest comic. I get that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, it's not even about his comedy for me. Okay, I watched a film the other day that I had forgotten about. Um, what I found most intriguing about Robin Williams was that his ability to actually play serious characters, the drama roles.
Oh, yeah.
Dramatic roles.
He's better. He's better as a serious actor than a comic actor.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, the comedian stuff was, to me, in the moments that he was in those high moments of being manic.
Yeah.
Where you just couldn't shut him down. But a film I watched the other day, which I had seen years ago and was just blown away by, but I had really forgotten about, was a film called Awakenings.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't.
It's a true story. It's based. Okay, if you get a chance to see this film, it has Robert De Niro in it, and it has Robin Williams in it, and it is not a comedy. It is a sad and brilliant film. It's sad because it doesn't turn out the way you hope. Throughout the film, you have a lot of hope. It doesn't turn out the way you hope, and you cry. Like, there's a lot of moments where you just go, God, this is just overwhelmingly sad. But God damn, that man was brilliant. And as I watched it, I was really reminded of what a goddamn loss he was to society. And I think about the fact that so many brilliant actors who were and are brilliant comedians can play these roles that are so deeply, like, and I say deeply, but I mean just literally deep characters, so multiply layered, I guess.
I think there's
using English incorrect.
Can I just say this? I also going to say is there is a reason, I believe, why a lot of comedians make great set-piece drama actors. Look at Eddie Izzard.
What do you think?
But Eddie Izzard, the numerous films, okay?
Yeah.
I think there is a reason for this. Robin Williams, as you said, classic example of doing many straight roles. And that is that I personally believe, this is just my belief, that to be a very successful stand-up comedian, you need to be a rather troubled person. It just somehow or other, right? But to be a very serious actor, you kind of need to be the same thing. And I think they share the same ideology. Well, not ideology, it's not true. They share the same mindset or qualities. And so if you can be a great actor, you can be a great stand-up comedian. The two things, I think, intertwined with each other. And it's the reason why we often see great comedians doing amazing roles in serious movies, and we go, what the fuck? But they're born for it. They were born for it.
Okay. Yeah, well, here's the thing I'm going to say. As somebody who's been in casting for a really long time, what I've noticed is that there are people who are brilliant comedians, okay? You look at them, their comedy acts, their stand-up is brilliant, and you see them on a show and they're like super up and they say all kinds of crazy things. Maybe the people who are interviewing them can't even keep control of them because they're literally just over the top. But here's the thing. There are people who are amazing actors. And I will name a couple people, okay? I will say...
Sorry, can I just say, can we say... No, just wait. Can we say it quick? Because our sponsor is about to cut us off. I'm just trying to let you know.
Our sponsor?
Our host is about to cut us
do we
off.
need to quit and come back? Yeah? Do we need to cut this off and we'll talk about it later?
Well, we can talk about it on another time. We're basically running out of recording time, is what I'm trying to say. And I hate to do this. I talk
too much, that's why.
No. Well, I hate to do this.
Let's end it then, and we'll talk about this stuff later.
Yeah, so maybe we can remember it and come back to it next week, talking about...
Yeah, I will make a note.
If that's all right. I'm not trying to be an prick, sorry, but the problem is... We have a recording
Warren, get
host.
Me under control. Do the thing.
We have a recording host as a podcaster, and they will cut us off
Yeah.
after a certain period of time. It's just there are certain
you're right.
realities,
You're right.
and
I
I'm
can't get my
watching
shit
the
under
clock,
control. So
and I'm watching the clock ticking down, and we are literally a minute away from that. So,
well, then let's end it then.
So yes, so all I was going to say is we'll come back to
Get out.
Get out. Everyone remember what we were talking about. We'll be back next week. Anything you want to say? Just to say goodbye or just say goodbye?
Don't judge me. Don't judge me. And then I'm going to say it in a French accent. Goodbye. It's not a French accent. It's a joke.
Auf Wiedersehen. All right. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
And we'll be back. We'll be back. I was going to say au revoir.
Bye, bitch.
Can I do the Australian one?
Yeah.
Fuck you. All right. So, that's Australian.
I think the American one would just bye, bitch.
Bye, bitch. No, Australian's fuck you. I won't do the last
or
word.
Bye, Felicia.
No, don't. I can't put the last word into the Australian one because I don't want to go over it.
Because offending people is at the top of our list.
Well, the point is that
no, I was right the first time.
No, I know.
Offending people is at the top of our list.
But what might be socially acceptable in Australia is not necessarily socially acceptable in the Czech Republic. All right, so I'm not going to do that.
Do we have people listening to there? I don't think so.
I don't know. Well, the last time I looked, we had Malaysia, we had China, we had France.
Ni hao ma.
We had Germany, the United States, of course, Australia. No one from New Zealand, which I sort of say, fuck you, Kiwis. Yeah, it's typical.
Wrong. I did see some wine that was being made in Tasmania this week, which is amazing, and I want to hear more about that. So
that's really amazing because it's the tundra down there. It's so cold. Although it gets very hot in summer. I've been down there, and there are flies down there are the size of fucking hedgehogs. It's a fucking fly the size of a hedgehog. They're huge. That fucking island is amazing. It's beautiful, though. I have to admit, it's one of the most beautiful islands on the face of the planet. It really is.
I've never been there. I've been to New Zealand.
It's just the whole entire island is a mountain. It's just a giant mountain range. It's very beautiful.
I'm going to talk about that next week.
We're
out of time, Warren. You said you had to stop talking.
Yeah, we're down into the seconds. All right. So,
okay. Well, goodbye.
And I'll say, Auf Wiedersehen. Thank you for listening. Join us again next week. It's cool. Cocktails and conversation. Thumbs up. Yeah. Hashtag. We don't even have one. Who gives a fuck? All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Don't judge me.
Cheers, guys.